Chapter 796, For What? The great violet-winged beast was capable of flying at an incredible speed. The distance of 1,000 li was covered swiftly. In the meandering Hengyuan mountain range, a towering mountain was shrouded amidst clouds. The sun rays falling on it refracted to form a brilliant myriad of colors. Accompanied with the rich spiritual energy on the grounds and the occasional calls of beasts and fowls, it felt like a heavenly realm. So this is the Cloud Mist Ridge. Recalling Luo Qiqi's introduction, Zhang Xian stared at it with a grave expression. Even before reaching, he could already feel the concentrated spiritual energy spilling from it, as if a natural spirit-gathering formation had been erected on the mountain. Without a doubt, such a blessed land would have countless powerful spirit beasts and saint beasts on it. I need to speed up. Knowing that Wei Changfeng might be in danger at this very moment, Zhang Xian urged the great violet-winged beast forward. However, as they reached the foot of the mountain, the great violet-winged beast seemed to have felt some kind of fearsome aura which rendered it unwilling to advance forward regardless of what he said. Thus, he could only have it wait at the bottom of the mountain while he ventured up alone. Eye of Insight. Activating the red dust heaven ascending steps, Zhang Xian scanned his surroundings carefully as he advanced forward to search for Wei Changfeng's trail. The Cloud Mist Ridge might only be a portion of Hengyuan mountain range, but nevertheless, it still extended over several hundred kilometers. On top of that, visibility here was also impaired by the clouds drifting in the area. If Zhang Xian were to search randomly, it would be unlikely for him to find the other party even if he were given a year. By then, the other party would have been long dead. I can't find his trail. After scanning the region, Zhang Xian was unable to find anything at all, and his eyebrows shot up. Logically speaking, considering that Wei Changfeng had only set off a day earlier than him, he should be able to pick up his trail through the Eye of Insight easily. Yet, to be unable to find anything at all, what was happening? Wei Changfeng must have intentionally erased his trail. After a moment of thought, the truth dawned on Zhang Xian. Considering that he was venturing into a land filled with saint beasts, if he were to leave behind any trail, the enemy could use it to track him, and he would be placed in an extremely dangerous position. Realizing this, Wei Changfeng must have intentionally erased his trail so as to avoid the attention of the saint beasts. How do I find him now? Zhang Xian frowned. He thought that he would be able to find the other party's trail easily with the Eye of Insight, but given the current circumstances, how was he to save Wei Changfeng? If he were to search aimlessly, it was more likely that he would get lost before he could even find Wei Changfeng. Right. Just as Zhang Xian was conflicted, a thought suddenly appeared in his mind, and he took out the football-sized object from his storage ring. Myriad Anthive Nest. In terms of finding something, there was nothing more efficient than this fellow. Who? The Myriad Anthive Queen appeared before Zhang Xian. Over the past few days, it seemed to have become much thinner, and its body was distorted like a fried dough biscuit. What happened to you? Seeing its state, Zhang Xian was taken aback. On the other hand, the Myriad Anthive Queen's eyes flew around the place in fury. Don't you know very well what happened to me? You forcefully stuffed the Byzantium Helios beast into my nest, leaving me to squeeze with that huge fellow. If it wasn't for the blessing of the heavens, I might have already been squeezed to death. But as frustrated as the Myriad Anthive Queen was, she didn't dare to complain to Zhang Xian. Alright, the reason why I brought you out is to have you scout the Cloud Mist Ridge for me. I want to find a person. Knowing that this wasn't the time to be concerned with the state of the Myriad Anthive Queen, Zhang Xian instructed. The Myriad Anthive Queen nodded, and opening its mouth, it breathed out a round ball. Weng weng weng. The ball grew larger and larger before abruptly bursting, and countless Myriad Anthive ants burst forth from it, infiltrating the surroundings inconspicuously. Master, there is no sign of any humans in the area. A few minutes later, the Myriad Anthive Queen reported. No sign. Zhang Xian frowned. Search the area further up the mountain. At the same time, keep a lookout for the saint beasts as well. The moment you find any, report it to me immediately. There might be many saint beasts in the area, but it was highly likely that they had segmented the mountain amongst them. As long as they could find the saint beast in charge of the territory they were treading through and avoid it, they should be able to avoid danger. Yes. The myriad anthive queen nodded. Using its unique ability, it relayed the orders to the myriad anthive ants. Let's advance up the mountain. Soon, after the myriad anthive queen was done analyzing the beasts in the area, Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. The strongest beast at the foot of the mountain was only at ethereal treading realm. There was no saint beast yet. With this intelligence, Zhang Xian advanced up the mountain with the myriad anthive queen using the safe path found by the myriad anthive ants. Master, there seem to be some traces of a fight ahead. After advancing some distance, the myriad anthive queen suddenly sent a telepathic message over. Are there any corpses? Zhang Xian asked. There is no human corpse there. Knowing what Zhang Xian was worried about, the myriad anthive queen replied. Bring me over, Zhang Xian said grimly. All right. The myriad anthive queen pointed the direction where the battle had occurred, and Zhang Xian flew over discreetly. Soon, he arrived in an area where marks of battle could be seen. Activating the Eye of Insight, he scanned the surroundings carefully. The battle happened around 10 to 12 hours ago. On top of those three virescent sound beasts, I can also see traces of a human from the battle marks in the surroundings. Even though these virescent sound beasts aren't too strong, possessing only the cultivation of perfect harmonization realm, they possess exceptionally sharp noses. Most likely, they must have caught the scent of the human and followed it here, resulting in the eventual fight. Two of them were struck dead in a single blow, but the final one managed to let out a howl in his moment of death. Alarmed, the human smashed its head swiftly in order to silence it. However, even though the virescent beast had only managed to let out a momentary shout, its sharp voice should have attracted the attention of plenty of spirit beasts. Soon, Zhang Xian finished analyzing the details of the battle swiftly. Most likely, the human was Wei Changfeng. Even though the battle had ended swiftly, it had still ended up leaving a disturbance in the spiritual energy in the area. This was no different from having one's location exposed. Having alarmed the saint beasts and spirit beasts in the area, the danger faced from venturing further in was greater than ever. He went in that direction. As Zhang Xian analyzed the scene carefully, a gleam flashed across his eyes as he found a trail left behind by Wei Changfeng while he was escaping, and he hurriedly followed it. Most likely, Wei Changfeng must have known that it was no longer of any use to hide his trail with his general location revealed. He would be easily uncovered if the beasts were to comb the area. Under such circumstances, rather than wasting his time on clearing his trail, he decided that it would be better for him to escape as far as he could. However, it must be said that Wei Changfeng was truly an intelligent person. Knowing that it was only a matter of time before the beasts caught up with him, he chose to take the narrow path up the mountain. Treading on the narrow path, the spirit beasts and saint beasts would be unable to exploit their numerical advantage against him. On top of that, the massive bodies of the beasts would hinder them on this narrow path, limiting the prowess they could exert. But naturally, there was a huge flaw in this course of action too. He might still be able to hold his ground at the start, but as his strength depletes battle after battle, he would find himself with nowhere to escape to, as though a noose was slowly tightening on his neck. Proceeding onward, Zhang Xian saw quite a few dead spirit beasts along the path. Perfect harmonization realm, ethereal treading realm, chrysalis realm. As the strength of the spirit beasts rose, the battles grew more and more intense. A distance later, Zhang Xian finally stumbled upon a half-saint beast's carcass. It was a dark-faced steel bear, and it was killed by a saber slashing through its head. A half-saint has already appeared even though I haven't reached the middle point of the ridge yet, and the beasts will only grow stronger the further up the mountain we proceed, Zhang Xian thought grimly. The more kills Wei Changfeng made, the more beasts he would attract. Even though he was a saint realm expert, he would eventually reach the limit of his stamina. I should make haste. With an ominous feeling weighing on his heart, Zhang Xian hurried forward. Perhaps all of the spirit beasts and saint beasts had been attracted by Wei Changfeng, or maybe the myriad Anthive Queen's information network was truly that effective. He had managed to steer clear of any beasts in his way forward. However, the deeper he ventured, the more intense his eyelid twitched. Soon, Zhang Xian stopped at a battlefield. The surrounding fauna and flora had been completely tramped by the shockwave of battle. There was a massive depression that extended for over several hundred meters. In the depression, one could see a dense concentration of narrow slash marks and huge smash marks. All in all, it was a complete upheaval. There are 3 nascent Saint Realm blacktail fox. With the eye of insight, Zhang Xian swiftly analyzed the surroundings, and his face darkened. Even though nascent Saint Realm blacktail foxes were no match for Wei Changfeng, they were known to be cunning and their expertise at conducting surprise assault. Based on the marks of battle, it seemed like Wei Changfeng had suffered considerable injuries in the fight as well. Zhang Xian casually bent down and picked up a tattered piece of cloth on the ground. It was stained crimson with blood. This happened 2 hours ago. Zhang Xian clenched his fists tightly. Knowing that he was getting closer and closer to Wei Changfeng, he continued rushing ahead. Not too long later, he stumbled upon another battlefield. It was an even more intense battle this time. 2 Saint Realm beasts were lying on the floor, devoid of life. One of them had an arm hanging from the tip of its mouth, and until this point, fresh blood was still spilling from the end of the arm. It's Wei Changfeng's arm. Zhang Xian widened his eyes as he recognized the arm before him. Assaulted by Saint Realm beasts and having an arm torn off him, even if Wei Changfeng managed to slaughter his opponent, it was unlikely for him to be able to proceed much further with all the injuries he had suffered in the battle. With a brief glance at the surroundings, he also realized that the ground was deeply stained with a human's blood. With such injuries, Wei Changfeng would die very soon if he wasn't treated. That fellow, does he really need to go that far? Even if we fail to obtain the cloud mist flower, we can always find another alternative together. Zhang Xian sighed deeply in lamentation. Encountering saint beasts with strength comparable to his, Wei Changfeng must have known that it was nigh impossible for him to pass them. Even if he did, it wasn't a guarantee that he would find the cloud mist flower, and it was impossible for him to return with the cloud mist flower in hand either. A person as smart as him should have known it was futile and suicidal for him to proceed on. Hurrying ahead, he advanced yet another several hundred meters and saw a saber stab deeply onto the cliff face along the path. The saber was dripping with blood, probably from the deceased saint beast encountered earlier. Through the various marks of battle, Zhang Xian could tell that Wei Changfeng's weapon was a spirit pinnacle saber. Astonished, he hurried forward to pull the saber out. It's broken. Upon pulling it out, Zhang Xian realized that the saber was already snapped into 2. It seemed to have been cleanly sliced apart by some kind of unbelievably sharp weapon, and the entire patch in the surroundings was dyed red as well. For a Saint Realm expert to have its spirit pinnacle weapon snapped in battle, just what did Wei Changfeng encounter? Taking a swift scan of the surroundings, Zhang Xian suddenly rushed forward, bent down, and picked up a clump of thick hair from the ground. This is the hair of a Saint Realm 1 Dan pinnacle ancient ape. Zhang Xian's face darkened as if the underside of a pot. Wei Changfeng's cultivation was only at Saint Realm 1 Dan intermediate stage. Given his current fighting prowess, it would be difficult for him to match even a Saint Realm 1 Dan intermediate stage Saint Beast, not to mention a Saint Realm 1 Dan pinnacle ancient ape. He is in true danger this time around. It'll be difficult for him to survive, Zhang Xian thought worriedly as he rushed ahead. As long as Wei Changfeng gave up at this point, he might still stand a chance at escaping. Just what was it that made him push on despite sustaining such severe injuries? Chapter 797, This is a Father's Love Deep in the Cloud Mist Ridge. Peng 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 peng. A figure was knocked back and crashed heavily into the cliff face. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper, and blood was spilling from his mouth. He had lost a hand, and most of his bones had snapped from the many intense battles he had fought. Breathing raggedly, it felt as if he was just clutching to the final flicker of his life. The enemy he was facing was a massive ape-like saint beast. It had a pitch-black body and enormous fists, and it possessed fearsome strength to fit its stature. I have not taken the cloud mist flower, I can't die just yet. Clenching his teeth, he pulled himself out from the cliff face through sheer resolution, and with his gaze fixated in the distance, he immediately charged over. Damn it! Seeing how that fellow was still persisting on, the ape snorted heavily and charged at the man once more. Upon reaching the level of a saint beast, the ape was already capable of speaking human speech. It had encountered the human an hour ago, and considering that the other party was a Saint Realm 1 Dan intermediate stage cultivation, he thought that he should be able to easily send the other party fleeing with fear with a strike of its fist. Who could have thought that the other party would disregard his injuries entirely and charge on resolutely, as if he was in a trance? Pursuing the human, it had already landed over 20 clean punches on him. With the incredible might of its fists, even a fellow Saint Realm pinnacle beast would have succumbed by now. But no matter how many blows it landed on him, he just couldn't be stopped. Hong Long. With a swift leap, the ape smashed that human into the ground, shattering innumerable bones in his body further. Pu. The human spewed yet another mouthful of fresh blood with so much force that it felt as if he would spew his innards out as well. The ape thought that he had finally defeated the human with this blow, but the other party abruptly leaped out from the ground in the next moment and trudged on. Just what is that fellow up to? The ape couldn't comprehend the human's persistence. All life forms, be it human or beast, carried a natural deference for life. They were driven by a natural tendency for survival, and they would do anything they could to clutch on to life. Yet, that fellow rushed forward adamantly with no regard for his life. Soon I will reach the area where the cloud mist flowers grow soon. Paying no heed to the ancient ape, Wei Changfeng glanced at the surroundings as a spark of hope lit in his black eyes. He was thinking that he would sneak onto the mountain, harvest a stalk of cloud mist flower, and leave quietly, but who could have thought that he would be so unlucky as to be spotted by the virescent voice beast so early in, drawing in powerful beasts to him. To be honest, as the boss of the Spirit Emporium, Wei Changfeng possessed many unique artifacts that would have allowed him to escape even from the Saint 1 Dan pinnacle ancient ape. But if he were to do that, it would be impossible for him to make it within the 2-day deadline that Yu Su set. He needed the cloud mist flower to trade for the 10-leafed flower in order to save his daughter's life. For that goal, even if death was at the very end of the path, he would tread on it without any hesitation. Pang! Struck yet again, Wei Changfeng was sent tumbling on the ground. With each blow, Wei Changfeng could feel his strength and consciousness being driven out from his body. In a moment of daze, he could vaguely see a figure beckoning him over. I haven't met him yet, and I don't even know his gender, but he's our child. Even at the risk of my life, I can't allow anything to happen to him. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, a stream of tears flowed down her face as she faced him. I know that you love me, and you will respect my decision. No, he wanted to reach out to stop her, but at this very moment, his strength was sealed. No matter how hard he struggled, his body just wouldn't move. With the severe injuries I carry on me, my life is already limited. I want to give my life to him and allow him to live on in my stead. With a dull moan, she transferred the remaining strength she had in her towards her womb, granting her child the strength to come to this world. A resounding cry of an infant echoed in the cavern. Finally, he managed to break the seal that bound him, but by this point, she was already lying on the ground, devoid of strength. In his embrace, she smiled. Changfeng, I'm sorry. Take care of our child and bring her up well. Before she could finish her words, her body had already slumped lifelessly. Your daughter has suffered considerable damage in the womb. I fear that she won't live more than 3 months. An old man shook his head. He gritted his teeth as he heard those words. This life was one she had exchanged her life for. If his daughter were to die, how could he face the woman he deeply loved? Thus, he traveled the world, searching for renowned physicians to treat his daughter. The spirit of artifacts can grant her soul the power to support her body, allowing her to live on, but this is only a temporary measure. Its effectiveness will eventually wear out, a 6-star physician told him. As long as she can live on, I am willing to pay any price, he replied with clenched fists. Thus, he built the Spirit Emporium and went around scouring for as many artifacts as he could, resorting to even underhanded means to obtain them. Finally his daughter's condition improved. Papa, a young voice sounded. His eyes reddened, and at that moment, he felt as if everything he had done had paid off. This was because she was his daughter. As well as her daughter. Where is Mama? An 8-year-old child asked him. The gleam in her eyes and the slight frown on her forehead seemed like an exact replica of hers. She has gone to a faraway place, holding his daughter dearly. His eyes couldn't help but redden. Father, am I reaching my end? I feel so tired and exhausted. You will be fine. Father will save you, he spoke with a lump in his throat. The 10-leafed flower can save your daughter's life, the young master told him. I need a stalk of cloud mist flower. If you can bring me a cloud mist flower within 2 days, I will trade my 10-leafed flower for it. Vice School Head Yusu said with a nod. I can't die yet. If I were to die, there will be no hope for Ruyan as well. Many scenes flashed across Wei Changfeng's eyes as he struggled to his feet once more. If he didn't require the cloud mist flower to save her daughter, he would never have been able to push on so far. The ancient ape behind him might not be able to comprehend his actions, and Zhang Xian might not be able to understand his tenacity, but only he knew that he would do anything for his daughter. In this world, there was nothing more important than his daughter. Almost, he rushed across the hill, and all of a sudden, the clouds before him parted, and a beautiful white flower appeared in his sight. Cloud mist flower, Wei Changfeng's body trembled in agitation. The only reason why he had trudged on this far was for this. Finally, his goal was right before his eyes. Pang! Just as he wanted to rush forward to pick the flower, he was suddenly kicked by the ancient ape from the back. Tumbling on the ground furious once more, Wei Changfeng felt his consciousness blurring. He felt lethargic and powerless, and an urge to rest welled up within him. I must obtain it, but he still climbed to his feet once more. Rushing forward, he swiftly grabbed the flower and kept it in a jade box. Who? In that instant, he heaved a sigh of relief, and the edges of his lips curled up. In that instant, he felt that all of the injuries he had sustained was worth it. With this, the young master would be able to save his daughter. Even if he were to die, he would be able to stand before her proudly and say that he had protected their daughter. All this for a stalk of cloud mist flower. Seeing the contented smile on that human, the ancient ape had an unbelievable look on its face. It was still wondering what it was that would drive a human to persevere on even at the expense of its life, but to think that this would be all a Saint Realm expert losing his life over a mere tea leaf, was this really worth it? Taking its reactions into sight, Wei Changfeng simply smiled. How could a beast understand human emotions? With the item he came for in hand, he took in a deep breath and began trudging down the mountain. Humph. Regardless of what you are here for, the Cloud Mist Ridge isn't a place where you can come and leave as you please. With a furious roar, the ancient ape charged forward and clawed at Wei Changfeng. Pooh-hee. How could the severely injured Wei Changfeng stand against the ancient ape? His chest was immediately pierced through, and fresh blood spewed from the wounds. Wei Changfeng staggered backward weakly. He tried to draw on all of his strength to retaliate, only to realize that he was completely depleted. His body had already reached its very limit. He could feel an immense force tugging at his soul, seemingly trying to draw his soul somewhere. Is this death? I should be able to meet her now, right? His consciousness gradually blurred as his soul began departing from his body to enter an unknown dimension. Wei Changfeng. In that final moment, he vaguely saw a figure rushing towards him in his blurred vision, and an anxious voice called his name. Young master. Feebly, he muttered, why did you come? It's dangerous here. The reason why he dared not tell the young master about the condition of the Cloud Mist Ridge was due to his fear that the young master would insist on tagging along with him. If something were to happen to the young master, there would be no one who could save his daughter. Dangerous? If you knew it was dangerous, why didn't you tell me? Zhang Xian roared furiously. He had rushed all the way here, but from the looks of it, he was still too late. He could feel that the other party's life force had already withered. Not even a 7-star physician would be able to save him now. Placing his fingers on the other party's acupoint, Zhang Xian furiously pumped his Heaven's Path Shenqi into Wei Changfeng's body in hope for a miracle. However, as if a bag filled with holes, his Shenqi simply leaked out of the other party's body, unable to do any good at all. Young master, don't bother. I know that I won't make it. Flicking his wrist, Wei Changfeng passed a jade box over with trembling hands. This is the cloud mist flower. Zhang Xian's face was livid. He really didn't expect that fellow to go so far just for a stalk of cloud mist flower. You must save her. Wei Changfeng's voice slowly grew fainter and fainter. Don't worry, I will save her. I will let her live a life far better than an ordinary one, Zhang Xian said hoarsely. Thank you, young master, Wei Changfeng nodded, but in the next moment, his soul finally succumbed to the force and disappeared into the unknown dimension, and his body slumped back powerlessly. Changfeng, sensing the final flicker of life within his subordinate fade, Zhang Xian's eyes reddened and he roared furiously. At this moment, how could he still not comprehend the reason behind Wei Changfeng's actions? Everything he did was for his daughter. This is a father's love. The simplest and most selfless love in the world. Human, this isn't a place where you can enter as you please. Upon seeing yet another person rushing in and disregarding its presence even, the ancient ape roared in fury. This isn't a place where I can enter as I please. Zhang Xian raised his head and gazed at the ancient ape. You are the one who killed Wei Changfeng. His eyes were filled with coldness and savagery. Voila! In the next moment, more than 20 Saint Realm puppets appeared abruptly and rushed for the ancient ape. Make it suffer a fate worse than death. Chapter 798, Earth Vein Spirit Essence. What? Not expecting a weak human whom he could easily squeeze to death with a finger of his to have so many Saint Realm puppets in his possession, the ancient ape's body stiffened. It immediately turned around to flee. But with so many Saint Realm puppets going after him simultaneously, how could it possibly stand any chance at escaping? Pai li pa la. The sound of fists and kicks sinking into the flesh echoed resoundingly. With the experience the puppet had from dealing with the Byzantium Helios beast, they were able to deal with the ancient ape efficiently. In just a few moments, there was not a single unharmed spot on the ancient ape, and it was teetering on the verge of death. Don't kill me. I am willing to be your tamed beast, the ancient ape pleaded. At this point, with its life at stake, it couldn't care less about its dignity as a saint beast anymore. I don't need it. Zhang Xian waved his hands coldly. It would indeed be convenient for him if he had a Saint Realm 1 Dan Pinnacle tamed beast serving him. But for killing Wei Changfeng, Zhang Xian wanted it to pay with its life. Otherwise, how could he face Wei Changfeng's daughter? Kill it. Turning his gaze away from the ancient ape, Zhang Xian drew out his soul. If his Heaven's Path Shenqi couldn't save Wei Changfeng, perhaps his means as a soul oracle might still stand a chance. But after taking a look, he could only shake his head helplessly. Wei Changfeng was simply far too severely wounded. If not for his sheer determination to obtain the cloud mist flower, he would have already died hours ago. As soon as the tension in his mind was released, his soul was immediately absorbed into an unknown dimension, disappearing from the face of the world. Putting aside him, not even Kong Shi would be able to save Wei Changfeng. Don't worry, I will take good care of your daughter. Zhang Xian said solemnly as his soul returned to his body. Even though it hadn't been long since he met Wei Changfeng, and there were even some unpleasant memories between them, Zhang Xian was still filled with respect for him. Wei Changfeng wasn't a good man, but he was a good father. He was willing to lay down everything he had for his daughter, and that was truly admirable. Knowing that it was impossible to save Wei Changfeng, Zhang Xian kept his corpse in his storage ring before turning to the ancient ape once more. At this point, it had only a few breaths left in it. Even though it was a Saint One Dan pinnacle beast, it was still no match against 20 powerful puppets who knew not of exhaustion or pain. Human, as long as you don't kill me, I will let you in on a secret. Noticing Zhang Xian's gaze on it, the ancient ape anxiously made an offer. It knew that it would surely die if it didn't do anything, so it could only make a gamble. A secret? What secret can you offer me? Zhang Xian asked disdainfully. It's the location of the earth vein spirit essence. As long as you spare me, I can bring you to it, the ancient ape hurriedly spoke. Earth vein spirit essence? Zhang Xian was slightly taken aback. Indeed. That is the condensation of spiritual energy that accumulates only within major earth veins. The spiritual energy contained within earth vein spirit essence is far easier to absorb than those within spirit stones, making it highly useful for cultivators beneath Saint Realm, the ancient ape explained hurriedly, fearing that Zhang Xian wouldn't know what it was. Zhang Xian was moved by the offer. At the current moment, what he was lacking direly at the moment was spirit stones to provide ample spiritual energy for his cultivation. If he could obtain the earth vein spirit essence, he could be spared a great deal of effort. Even though he had never heard of the earth vein spirit essence before, considering that it was the condensation of spiritual energy within major earth veins, it must be incredibly valuable. The reason why Saint Beasts of Cloud Mist Ridge disallow humans from entering the mountain is to protect the earth vein spirit essence. As long as you don't kill me, I can bring you over, the ancient ape offered. I will be able to find it even without you. Zhang Xian uttered coldly as he raised his hand, and the puppets immediately continued raining blows on the ancient ape. At the same time, Zhang Xian drew his soul out of his body and formed a series of hand seals. Soul Art, Soul Search. As the culprit who killed Wei Changfeng, the ancient ape had to die. There was no room for negotiation at all. Under normal circumstances, given Zhang Xian's current soul cultivation, it should have been impossible for him to conduct a soul search on a Saint Realm expert. However, a Saint Beast's soul was typically weaker than a human Saint Realm expert's, and that fellow has also been beaten to the point that it was on the verge of dying. On top of that, Vicious was also helping him by the side. As a result, the ancient ape succumbed swiftly to the soul search. Tzzzzzzzzzz. Dragging out the ancient ape's soul, its memories and knowledge began flowing in Zhang Xian's mind. There's indeed a lake of earth vein spirit essence here. Browsing through the ancient ape's memory, Zhang Xian's eyes lit up. The other party didn't lie to him, there was indeed earth vein spirit essence on the Cloud Mist Ridge. It was for fear that humans would discover its existence that they guarded the area faithfully. To be honest, the ancient ape hadn't expected to luck out as well. If it had been anyone else, the other party might have chosen to spare it in consideration of the earth vein spirit essence. But never in its dreams would it have expected the young man before it would be a soul oracle possessing the ability of soul search. While I do know the location of the earth vein spirit essence now, it won't be easy for me to get to it. There are 4 Saint Beasts of the ancient apes level guarding it. If I had really followed this fellow there, even with my puppets, it would have been unlikely for me to have escaped with my life. The existence of the earth vein spirit essence might be true, but the ancient ape wasn't speaking the entire truth. If Zhang Xian had really listened to it and followed behind it, he would have found himself encircled by 4 Saint One Dan pinnacle Saint Beasts and countless half-saint and nascent Saint Beasts. Even with the otherworldly demon puppets he had in his possession, it would be extremely difficult for him to break free. After all, even though the puppets feel no pain and could fight fearlessly, they were still limited by the spiritual energy within them. After the previous few uses, their energy reserves were already half depleted. Unlike in the underground chamber, where there was a river filled with spiritual energy that could be used to recharge the otherworldly demon puppets, it wouldn't be so easy to do it here. Once the puppets ran out of energy, given Zhang Xian's current strength, the only fate before him would be death. Even at the expense of its death, the ancient ape intended to drag him down from it. Under the forceful impact of the soul search, the ancient ape's soul dissipated into nothingness. After procuring its inner core and other useful parts and storing them in his storage ring, Zhang Xian fell into deep contemplation. Based on what it said, the earth vein spirit essence is made out of spiritual energy. Even though its purity isn't on par with high-tier spirit stones, it is far easier to absorb it, such that even plants could absorb spiritual energy from the earth vein spirit essence. If I were to give it to the 10-leafed flower, I could make it bloom within a single day. After studying the effects of the earth vein spirit essence according to the ancient ape's understanding of it, Zhang Xian's eyes lit up. While spirit stones had an incredible reserves of spiritual energy within them, its solid form made it less efficient and effective in terms of absorption rate as compared to the earth vein spirit essence. If spirit stones was coal, the earth vein spirit essence would be fuel. While coal was capable of producing greater heat over a longer period of time, in terms of ignition speed and utility, fuel was still inherently superior. If Zhang Xian could obtain that, he would be spared from finding hundreds of high-tier spirit stones he would require to reach Saint Realm. The earth vein spirit essence is located at the direct center of the Cloud Mist Ridge. It isn't too far from here, but 4 Saint Realm 1 Dan beasts are guarding it. On top of that, there are also many nascent saint and half-saints in the area. It won't be easy for me to bypass them. Having learned the existence of the earth vein spirit essence, it was natural that Zhang Xian would want to obtain it. However, with his current strength, he would only die if he were to attempt to charge in forcefully. Vicious could suppress a Saint Realm 1 Dan beast easily, but there was nothing he could do about it when there were too many of them. After all, he had only just awakened, and he was merely a little more than a heart at the moment. Naturally, his strength was still far from his peak. Besides, it wouldn't be safe to rely solely on Vicious. If Vicious were to attempt a mutually assured destruction and refuse to help him, he might very well end up losing his life. Thus, it would be best to depend on himself wherever possible. Looks like I should still rely on my soul. After a moment of contemplation, a thought emerged in Zhang Xian's mind. It would be impossible for him to infiltrate the center of the Cloud Mist Ridge in his physical body. No matter how well he hid his trail, considering the dense concentration of spirit beasts and saint beasts in the area, he would definitely be found easily. However, it would be a different case if he was just a soul. Unlike Saint Realm cultivators, saint beasts had far weaker souls. It would be harder for them to sense the presence of souls. If Zhang Xian were to play his cards well, he might be able to creep in silently and smuggle the earth vein spirit essence out. Alright, it's decided then. Without any hesitation, Zhang Xian sat on the floor and drew his soul out. With a slight flick, he kept his physical body within the storage ring. The myriad anthive nest was extremely squeezy with the Byzantium Helios beast and the myriad anthive queen packed inside. Despite the harsh conditions in the storage ring for a living body, considering Zhang Xian's current cultivation realm and the resilience of his physical body, it should be fine if it was just for a few hours. What should I do about the ring? Since he had stored his physical body and his clone within the storage ring, it would be safer for him to bring it along with him wherever he went. Otherwise, if Spirit Beast were to find his storage ring and take it away, it would be too late for tears. But if he were to carry something tangible with his soul, that would be going against the very purpose of infiltrating into the center of the Cloud Mist Ridge as an intangible soul. He would be giving away his location to his enemies. Wait, what about the myriad ants? A thought suddenly struck Zhang Xian. He might be unable to bring the storage ring with him, but he could leave it with the myriad ants. Despite their small size, those ants were still savage beasts. It wasn't too difficult for them to fly with a ring. Furthermore, the intelligence network they shared allowed them to avoid spirit beasts and saint beasts in advance as well. They could follow his soul silently and bring the storage ring to where he wanted it to be. Even if some beast really managed to obtain the storage ring from them, as long as there were myriad ants keeping tabs on its location, he would still be able to find some way to retrieve the ring. It's decided then. Zhang Xian sent a telepathic message to the myriad ant hive queen to inform it of his plan, and a myriad ant immediately flew over to carry the storage ring. As he had expected, it had no problem flying while bearing the weight of the ring. Good. Fly close to the ground, near the shrubs. Seeing that his plan was feasible, Zhang Xian issued it several instructions before advancing to the center of the cloud mist ridge. After the soul search he had conducted on the ancient ape, he had gained an insight into how the beasts were distributed on the cloud mist ridge. With the myriad ants scouting the area as well, Zhang Xian's soul managed to avoid the detection of the spirit beast and saint beast. An hour later, he arrived before a towering cliff. Before the cliff was a gigantic waterfall that produced a deafening rumble reminiscent of thunder as it cascaded from the peak. The water eventually led to a river which meandered into the horizon. It should be here. Zhang Xian raised his gaze and stared at the waterfall. It was completely concealed behind the cascading water, but if staring at it intently, he could still barely see the outlines of a cavern behind the waterfall. If one hadn't known in advance, it would have been impossible to notice it. Based on the ancient ape's memory, the earth vein spirit essence was inside the cavern. Instead of rushing into the cavern, Zhang Xian first scanned the surroundings, and he found a couple of saint beasts who possessed strength on par with the ancient ape camping in the area. Slightly further away, he sensed the presence of at least a dozen saint realm primary stage, intermediate stage, and advanced stage beasts. It's fortunate that I didn't come here in my physical body. Upon seeing this sight, Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Had he brought his physical body over, he would have definitely been surrounded and killed. On the other hand, a soul was intangible and nearly indiscernible. As long as he didn't exert any power, it would be difficult for the enemies to notice his presence. Chapter 799, Breakthrough to Perfect Harmonization Realm. You head in first. Zhang Xian first issued elaborate instructions to the myriad ant carrying his storage ring for it to proceed into the cavern without drawing anyone's attention first before slowly flying over himself. It has been some time since ancient ape headed out. Why isn't he back yet? Before he could reach the cavern, he heard a voice from the surroundings. Two saint beasts not too far away from the cavern were currently chatting. The other saint beast harumphed. Who knows? But in any case, I heard the enemy is a saint realm intermediate stage human, so he should be more than enough to subdue the other party. He's probably just toying with him at this point. After all, it has been some time since any humans came to the cloud mist ridge. They were conversing in the ancient beast language, but Zhang Xian could still understand their words without any problem. Indeed, at least the humans know their place. Knowing that we are around, they dare not come over at all, the first saint beast said. Seeing that the two saint beasts were too engrossed in their conversation to notice him, Zhang Xian dived straight into the cavern. If it had been any other soul oracle, even if the saint beasts were ignorant in the study of souls, they would still have noticed the Yin aura it exuded. However, having cultivated the Heaven's Path soul art, his soul was complete, leaving it with no distinct aura. As if a light breeze, it would be extremely difficult for any unskilled personnel to notice it. Making use of the massive torrent of water from the waterfall, Zhang Xian was able to conceal his movement and slip into the cavern without any issue as well. The cavern was vast, and it was filled with slightly damp air. Zhang Xian met up with the myriad ant and took the ring from it before advancing forward. The further he advanced, the more humid the surroundings seemed to become. At the same time, the spiritual energy also grew more and more concentrated. At his current location, the spiritual energy concentration was already far above even that of Vice School head Yusu's residence. It was indeed a blessed land for cultivation. One would be able to easily achieve what would have taken others several days elsewhere in a single day. It's no wonder the saint beasts maintain such a tight defense around the cloud mist ridge. There is no way anyone would be willing to give up on such a blessed land, Zhang Xian thought. Not only was the spiritual energy in the surroundings concentrated, it was incredibly pure as well. Its level of purity was sufficient to even satisfy Zhang Xian's demands easily. Advancing forward, Zhang Xian soon reached the end of the cavern. There, he saw a round lake of around 8 meters in diameter. Within it was an emerald fluid which carried a refreshing air to it. It felt like one would be able to progress greatly in one's cultivation just by absorbing a small portion of it. This is the earth vein spirit essence. It's indeed impressive. Zhang Xian's eyes lit up. Even though he had learned of its mystical effects from the ancient ape, it was still very difficult for him to believe that such an incredible item could exist in the world until he finally laid his eyes on it himself. While its purity was still slightly lacking compared to a high-tier spirit stone, it made up for it with its overwhelming quantity. Even 1,000 high-tier spirit stones together might not match the sheer amount of spiritual energy contained within the lake. The mountains in the Hongyuan mountain range are a naturally occurring spirit-gathering formation, and the cloud mist ridge stood at the very center of the formation. As a result, vast amounts of spiritual energy accumulated in the area. However, the clouds in the surroundings hinder the diffusion of the spiritual energy, and as time went by, the spiritual energy eventually condensed into spirit essence. Zhang Xian deduced as he recalled the geographical terrain in the surroundings and the various sights he had seen so far. Nevertheless, to form a lake as big as the one before Zhang Xian, it should have taken at least 10,000 years. If I can take all of this away, not only will I have no problem advancing to Saint Realm, there will even be spare for Zheng Yang and the others' use as well, Zhang Xian thought in delight. With this treasure, they would no longer have to frustrate over the lack of spirit stones anymore. But how am I supposed to store an entire spirit essence lake? While Zhang Xian's storage ring was indeed large enough to put in a lake as big as this, he didn't have any container to store it. He did have a few wine gourds on him, but those were insignificant compared to the entire lake. What could he do? There was nothing that felt worse than stumbling upon a mound of treasure only to realize that one only had the inventory to store an insignificant portion of it. Even in his form as a soul, it took a fair bit of luck for him to sneak in here without drawing the attention of the saint beasts. There was no guarantee that it would be the same the next time he came here. As a result, he had to take away as much as he could this time around. Otherwise, he would be allowing such an ideal opportunity slip through his fingers. After a moment of contemplation, a thought popped into Zhang Xian's head. Perhaps I can use beast skin. There were quite a few sheets of beast skin in his storage ring. Perhaps, he could tie them together to make a container. Without any hesitation, Zhang Xian accessed his storage ring and pulled out several large sheets of beast skin. He skillfully manipulated his soul energy to form threads to weave them together, forming a gigantic container. Afterward, he plunged it into the lake to store as much spirit essence in it as possible. Gugu. Soon, the beast skin container was full with over 20 tons of liquid in it. Zhang Xian swiftly stored the beast skin container into his storage ring. There is still more than half left. Seeing that there was still a lot of spirit essence left in the lake, Zhang Xian stroked his lower jaw. Since he was already there, if he didn't clean out the place, he would have a nagging feeling at the back of his mind that he had missed something important. Sigh, obsessive-compulsive disorder sure is frustrating. Besides, the saint beasts on the Cloud Mist Ridge had a hostile relations with humans, and they had slain countless humans over the years. Every droplet of the earth vein spirit essence left meant an additional droplet to nourish the enemy. However, having used up even his beast skin, there was nothing else he could use as a container in his storage ring anymore. It was impossible for him to store any more than that. I wonder if there are any objects that could be used to store spirit essence around here. Zhang Xian pondered for a moment, but after he found that he was still unable to come up with any feasible solution, he decided to take a look around the cavern to see if there was anything he could use. What's this? Drifting alongside the lake, a pile of items suddenly appeared before Zhang Xian's eyes, and his eyebrows shot up. These are human bones. Taking a closer look, the pile was astonishingly human bones. Scanning the surroundings, there were several hundred other similar skeletal piles all around the cavern. Aren't humans forbidden from entering this area? How can there be human skeletons here? Zhang Xian was bewildered. With the tight defenses the saint beasts and spirit beasts had organized on the cloud mist ridge, it should have been impossible for any humans to get in here. Thus, the presence of so many skeletons was unnatural. Perplexed, Zhang Xian drifted down to take an even closer look. Most of the skeletal piles were male, and not too far from the pile, he found several weapons. These weapons weren't too high-tiered, averaging at around spirit intermediate tier. Zhang Xian picked one up using his soul energy, but upon attempting a slash, the weapon immediately snapped in two. It seemed the weapon had suffered severe damage in the midst of an intense battle, resulting in the loss of its durability. It appeared that an army had barged into the cavern in hopes of securing the grounds, only to eventually fall in defeat. As Zhang Xian was casually looking around, he suddenly caught sight of a storage ring. Interested, he immediately immersed his consciousness into the ring. There's nothing inside. Seems like someone has already emptied it out. Zhang Xian shook his head. Even though spirit beasts were unable to access storage rings, saint beasts could. Considering the sheer number of saint beasts in the area, if there had been anything good in those storage rings, they would have already long emptied them out. How could they possibly leave anything behind for him? These are books? Just as Zhang Xian was going to back out of the storage ring, he suddenly caught sight of an insignificant pile of items in the very corner of the storage ring. Proceeding closer, he realized that they were all books. Saint beasts had their own heritage, and the innate differences between a human and a beast also made it impossible for them to take up human cultivation techniques and battle techniques as well. As such, these books were completely useless to them. Zhang Xian's eyes swiftly scanned through them and replicated them in the Library of Heaven's Path. Indeed, they really are cultivation technique and battle technique manuals. Zhang Xian's eyes lit up in excitement. Most human cultivators had the habit of carrying dozens of books with them in their storage rings for reference or studying purposes. It was the same here as well. The storage ring had over 100 books in it. They spanned over Cosmos Bridge Realm, Perfect Harmonization Realm, and Ethereal Treading Realm. However, due to the lacking quantity, Zhang Xian was still unable to form a Heaven's Path divine art out of them. Perhaps there might be other storage rings in the area. If I can find more books, I just might be able to compile a complete Heaven's Path divine art. Since Zhang Xian was in no hurry either, he scanned through the area carefully, and before long, he had unearthed more than 20 storage rings. For several hundred corpses to only have so many rings, the rest must have been claimed by the other saints' beasts. Just like the ring Zhang Xian had looked into before, the valuable items had also been emptied out of them, leaving behind only a couple of books. Zhang Xian swiftly replicated the books in his Library of Heaven's Path. There are over 1,000 Perfect Harmonization Realm Cultivation Technique Manuals, 500 for Ethereal Treading Realm, and 200 for Chrysalis Realm. Zhang Xian's eyes lit up. He still didn't have sufficient books to compile a complete Heaven's Path divine art for Ethereal Treading Realm and Chrysalis Realm, but with over 1,000 for Perfect Harmonization Realm, he should be able to do so for that one. Compile. Before long, a Perfect Harmonization Realm Heaven's Path divine art appeared before his eyes. Flipping through it casually, its contents appeared in Zhang Xian's mind. Since I am unable to take away the remaining earth vein spirit essence, I might as well cultivate here and save as much as I can. Since there was nothing that could be used as a container in the surroundings, Zhang Xian decided to take this chance to raise his cultivation realm as well. Thriftiness is a virtue. What can be saved should be saved. Zhang Xian took out his physical body and returned his soul into it. After which, with a flick of his wrist, his clone also appeared before him. Just like his main body, his clone had also only cultivated up to Cosmos Bridge Realm Pinnacle. Given the sheer amount of Earth Vein Spirit Essence remaining in the lake, it should be more than enough to share between him and his clone. Thus, after informing his clone about the situation, Zhang Xian stepped into the lake first. Tzzzzzz. Driving the Perfect Harmonization Realm Heaven's Path divine art, the spirit essence around him began flowing into his body through his acupoints. Hong Long. With a crisp echo, he successfully achieved a breakthrough from Cosmos Bridge Realm Pinnacle to Perfect Harmonization Realm. With the rise in his cultivation, the rate at which he could absorb spiritual energy increased as well. Due to the overwhelming speed he was absorbing the spirit essence at, a vortex formed within the lake. Perfect Harmonization Realm Primary Stage. Perfect Harmonization Realm Intermediate Stage. Perfect Harmonization Realm Advanced Stage. In just an hour, Zhang Xian's cultivation had reached Perfect Harmonization Realm Pinnacle. Now for my soul. After he was done raising his Jinqi cultivation, Zhang Xian immediately drew out his soul and continued cultivating. His soul had already reached Perfect Harmonization Realm Advanced Stage, so it only took him 10 minutes to reach Pinnacle. With his Jinqi cultivation and soul cultivation reaching new heights, Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Feeling the immense power he wielded within, his eyes glowed in excitement. Typically speaking, it would have taken him at least several dozen high-tier spirit stones in order to raise his soul cultivation and Jinqi cultivation to Perfect Harmonization Realm Pinnacle. However, to be able to do this for free, he couldn't help but feel extremely comforted within. Alright, standing up, Zhang Xian glanced at the spirit essence to see how much of it was left when he suddenly froze. At this very moment, he could see the floor of the spirit essence lake, which had a diameter of 8 meters. In a little more than an hour, the earth vein spirit essence had been almost completely depleted. How is this possible? Zhang Xian had only advanced his cultivation to Perfect Harmonization Realm Pinnacle, so how could he have possibly used so much of it? He subconsciously turned his gaze to his clone, and his eyes narrowed in shock. Unable to hold himself back, he cursed, "Screw you, you damned wastrel." Chapter 800, Zhenyang Lectures. At this moment, he saw that his clone's soul had also left his body, and it was currently absorbing the spiritual energy in the lake frenziedly. With all the absorption he had done, his soul had doubled in size, reaching around 20 meters tall and nearly filling the entire cavern. Most of the remaining spirit essence had been absorbed by that fellow before him. Even though his clone's soul cultivation was still at Perfect Harmonization Realm, the sheer size and power surrounding the soul felt reminiscent of a deity, as if it wielded boundless power in its hands. After breaking the 20-meter bottleneck, the soul seemed to have undergone some kind of mysterious metamorphosis yet again. It became considerably more resilient, and the strength it wielded seemed to have grown far more fearsome as well. Against such a huge soul, even Lu Chang's soul, which he had seen in the latter's consciousness back then, paled in comparison. Zhang Xian had barely used 1/100th of the spirit essence to raise his Jinqi cultivation and soul cultivation to Perfect Harmonization Realm Pinnacle, but that fellow actually sapped the entire lake dry. Just the thought of it left him so frenzied that he could tear his hair out. Even though it was indeed true that he had no way of taking away the remaining earth vein spirit essence, he still couldn't help but feel his heart bleed upon seeing that huge lake being reduced to nothing. Who? Hearing Zhang Xian's roar, his clone's soul immediately slipped back into his body, and an incredible aura burst from its body, leaving Zhang Xian's eyebrows twitching uncontrollably. Zhang Xian wasn't a match for it before, and he was even less so now. Despite coming from the same origin, his clone's soul had been nourished by the 9 Hearts Lotus, granting its strength far greater than the main body. For the main body to be inferior to the clone. How humiliating! Nevertheless, considering that they shared the same consciousness, they could be considered as one entity. His clone's growth was also good news for him. You should return to the storage ring for now. Knowing that it was impossible to make his clone spit out the spirit essence that it had absorbed, Zhang Xian could only sigh helplessly and have his clone return to the storage ring. He, on the other hand, leaped out of the lake and began assessing himself internally. Having reached Perfect Harmonization Realm Pinnacle, the current strength that he could draw from his Jinqi cultivation was 14 million ding, which was comparable to an ethereal treading realm primary stage expert. Additionally, the maximum power he could draw from his soul cultivation had also reached 11 million ding. Adding in the 8 million ding from his physical body, his overall maximum strength currently stood at 33 million ding, which was nearly on par with a transcendent mortal 9-dan Chrysalis Realm Pinnacle expert. Chrysalis Realm Pinnacle, 34 million ding, with this kind of strength, he could definitely be ranked amongst the top of the student populace. Nonetheless, it was still far from matching up to the Saint Beasts camping outside. I should leave now. With his work done, Zhang Xian immediately drew out his soul and placed his physical body in the storage ring. Holding it himself, he carefully sneaked out of the cavern. Wait a moment, why does it feel like the spiritual energy concentration inside has fallen? Let's take a look. But before he could reach the cavern entrance, he suddenly heard the bellows of the Saint Beasts outside. In that split moment, Zhang Xian swiftly hid the storage ring behind a boulder before lying motionlessly with his soul pressed against the wall. Who? Right after he did that, 2 Saint Beasts abruptly appeared at the entrance of the cavern and rushed in at a speed so fast that it nearly stirred up a hurricane. It was due to the earth vein spirit essence that the cavern was unbelievably rich in spiritual energy. However, along with its depletion, the concentration of spiritual energy in the area began falling at a perceptible rate. No matter how slow the Saint Beasts were, it was impossible for them to not notice it. Now is my chance, I should quickly leave. Knowing that the Saint Beasts would comb through every nook and cranny once they noticed that the lake of spirit essence had been completely depleted, Zhang Xian dared not waste a single moment. He quickly picked up his storage ring and darted out of the cavern. Ah! Someone stole the spirit essence. Damn it, who was the one who did it? Right after Zhang Xian left the cavern, he heard a deafening roar from within. Not daring to waste even a split second, he immediately dived into the waterfall. In the next instant, a pressure so great that it felt as if even the earth would be reduced to dust burst out from the cavern, enveloping the area. Someone has sneaked into our cloud mist ridge. All beasts, listen to my command. Comb through the entire mountain and eliminate any suspicious people you see. Hong Long. Countless spirit beasts and saint beasts roared resoundingly in response, shaking the entire mountain. Looks like I won't be able to escape for the time being. With all of the spirit beasts and saint beasts of the Cloud Mist Ridge combing the area to search for him, it would be difficult for Zhang Xian to escape even in his state as a soul. Thus, he decided to advance under the concealment of the river for the time being. However, a short moment later, a dozen spirit beasts suddenly dived in to search the river. It was truly fortunate that Zhang Xian was currently in his soul state. With his storage ring hidden amidst the gravel of the seabed, there was nothing that could betray his presence to those spirit beasts. As such, after scouring the seabed for a moment, they were still unable to find anything at all, so they could only back out. After swimming for an unknown period of time, Zhang Xian finally reached the end of the river. By the time his soul finally left the river, the sky was already dark. Zhang Xian scanned his surroundings, and there were still quite a number of spirit beasts around. However, it would be nigh impossible for any beast beneath Saint Realm to notice his presence. Even so, Zhang Xian still decided to proceed carefully. Sometimes, the sensitivity of a spirit beast to its surroundings far surpassed what humans could even imagine. It would truly be unfortunate if he were to be caught and encircled at this point. Thus, he slowly proceeded down the mountain, stopping from time to time whenever he felt that a spirit beast's attention was focused nearby. As a result, it was already dawn by the time he reached the foot of the mountain. Finally, when he was a safe distance away from the Cloud Mist Ridge, he found a discreet location and took out his physical body. After returning his soul to his physical body, he summoned the great violet wing beast and swiftly returned to the academy. He might have failed to save Wei Changfeng, but he was determined to save his daughter. So far, it had been an entire day since he had left the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy. While Zhang Xian was preoccupied with his business at the Cloud Mist Ridge, a huge commotion had broken out in the Master Teacher Academy. Sun Chang had rushed to Zhang Xian's elite sector residence in order to report the matter of someone being interested in learning battle techniques from Zheng Yang and the others to him, but of course, the latter was nowhere to be found. At the same time, Zheng Yang and the others had also entered the headquarters of the True Helios faction, following behind Shui Zhenyang. In a vast courtyard. Gather everyone. Shui Zhenyang issued a command as soon as he returned. Not long later, everyone in the True Helios faction was standing before him. As expected of one of the top few factions in the academy. The entire True Helios faction consisted of more than 2,000 people, and its members spanned from grade 1 to grade 4. Seeing that all of the members were gathered there, Shui Zhenyang's gaze scanned through the crowd before he began speaking. The reason I have gathered you all here today is to announce to you all that I have found an expert to impart the essence of battle techniques to the faction members. An expert? Hasn't the faction leader been the one who has been giving us lessons on battle techniques? Did he manage to find someone more formidable than he is? Everyone looked at one another doubtfully. All along, other than the teachers they were under, the one who had been guiding them in their battle techniques had been Shui Zhenyang. Shui Zhenyang was one of the greatest talents in the martial arts school, so they had benefited greatly from his teachings as well. In truth, this was also the very reason most of them had chosen to join the True Helios faction. Yet, he had gathered all of them to tell them that there was another expert who would be guiding them on their battle techniques. Was he for real? Allow me to introduce you to my new spearmanship teacher, Zheng Yang. The lecture today will be conducted by him. He possesses transcendental skills in spear arts, so I believe that you will benefit greatly from his lecture. Shui Zhenyang introduced with a wave of his hand. Zhenyang. Spearmanship teacher. But this fellow seems to be only 16 or 17 years old. A lad as young as him is going to explain spearmanship to us. Seeing a young man walk up to the podium, the crowd was completely dumbfounded. They were the cream of the crop amongst master teachers, the geniuses of the geniuses. Yet, to have a teenage child lecture them. Wasn't this taking them too lightly? Today, what I will be talking to you about is the fundamentals of spearmanship. Standing before such a huge crowd, Zheng Yang couldn't help but feel a little anxious. However, as he began speaking about spearmanship, the confidence and pride in his heart dispelled the doubts in his mind, and his words gradually grew smoother and more fluent. It's possible to interpret spearmanship in such a manner. Formidable. Just by listening to his lecture, I feel like my understanding of spearmanship has been brought up several notches. The concepts that he's teaching are profound, but he is able to bring them across directly through simple words. On top of that, the concepts that he's explained are applicable not only to the spear but other weapons as well. His lecture has deepened my understanding of swordsmanship as well. The crowd initially had their reservations about having a teenage child lecture them, and they were prepared to see the other party make a fool out of himself. However, just by listening for a moment, they were completely awed. As young as the person before them might be, the concepts that he spoke of were a direct interpretation of the crux of spearmanship. It was very likely that even the elders in the academy might not have as deep an understanding of spearmanship as he did. It was no wonder the faction leader went all out to invite him there and gathered all of them together to listen to his lecture. He was indeed more than qualified for this. What did you say? Shui Zhenyang invited a spearmanship expert from the streets to conduct a lecture for his members. In the Ashen Moon faction, Long Sangyue stared at the reporting student with eyes filled with disbelief. Yes. The person he invited has an extremely deep understanding of spearmanship. 2 hours into the lecture, almost half of the spear practitioners of the True Helios faction had already achieved a breakthrough, the reporting student replied. Almost half of them made a breakthrough. Long Sangyue was shocked. Making an advancement in one's mastery of a weapon was far more difficult than making an advancement in one's cultivation. The latter could be achieved through diligence and good resources, but the former was highly dependent on one's aptitude. It was easy to learn theories, but comprehending the core of the concept was another different matter. Yet, To make half of the spear practitioners achieve a breakthrough in just 2 hours. Just how did that fellow do it? Where in the world did Shui Zhenyang find such a monstrous figure? If this matter is true, the true Helios faction will only grow stronger and stronger. I will have to look for Dong Xian to discuss this matter. Realizing the significance of this matter, Long Tsangyue immediately made his way to Dong Xian's residence anxiously. Preposterous. In the school head's office, the head of the martial arts school, Su Changqing, flung his sleeves furiously after hearing a teacher's report. Shui Zhenyang was his direct disciple. He could condone him causing trouble from time to time, but to invite a teenage child over to the martial arts school to lecture their students. Wasn't that making a mockery out of their school? If word were to spread, how could their martial arts school hold its head high before the other schools? I'll go and take a look. Harumphing coldly, Su Changqing left his room and walked swiftly to the True Helios faction's headquarters. Before long, he had arrived before the courtyard. There are so many people here. Su Changqing's eyebrows shot up in astonishment at the sight before him. The courtyard, from the podium to the very entrance, was completely packed with people. There was literally a sea of people before him. Even though the True Helios faction was a student organization, Su Changqing still knew a thing or two about it. Based on what he knew, the True Helios faction should only have had 2,000 people or so. But the crowd before him, no matter how he looked at it, there should at least be 5,000 people here. 5,000 people had gathered there to listen to the lecture of a teenage child. Ridiculous. This was utterly ridiculous. Just as Su Changqing was about to step into the courtyard, a plump man holding a basket in his hand abruptly stepped over and blocked his way. It will cost you 200 middle-tier spirit stones to enter. I have to pay to enter. Hearing those words, Su Changqing's face turned livid. It was already bad enough that Shui Zhenyang found a person of doubtful background to conduct a lecture in the martial arts school, but to think that he would have to pay 200 middle-tier spirit stones to enter. This was even costlier than the lecture of normal 6-star master teachers. Furthermore, the more students there were in a lecture, the cheaper it should have been. There were nearly 5,000 people in there, and yet they were still charging 200 spirit stones per person. Didn't that mean that they would earn 1,000,000 middle-tier spirit stones in just a single lecture? Please, not even a 7-star master teacher charged others in such a manner. Why? You can't afford it. Why even bother coming here when you can't even afford it? No wonder you still can't graduate despite being so old. Seeing that the old man before him was trying to barge in without paying, the plump man harumphed in disdain. So, you're broke. Chapter 801, Su Changqing's Shock, You. Hearing those words and seeing the other party's disdainful gaze, Su Changqing's face turned livid in fury. Even though the martial arts school was ranked 6th in the academy, standing behind the physician school, it was still a huge power in Hongyuan City. On top of that, within the 10 great master teachers, in terms of one-to-one combat, even if he wasn't ranked first, he was at least in the top 3. Yet, the other party didn't recognize him and even asked him for money. And that wasn't the worst yet. The other party actually said that he was broke. Broke your head. How could someone dare to come to the martial arts school without even knowing who the school head is? Where did this freak come from? Reining his anger back in, Su Changqing said, I am just here to take a look, not to listen to the lecture. As the head of the martial arts school, he must maintain a bearing worthy of such. He couldn't possibly fight with the other party over a mere insult. Take a look. The plump man assessed him doubtfully. Su Changqing nodded as he stroked his beard, bringing out the disposition of an enlightened expert. He had already made it so obvious. The other party couldn't possibly not recognize him after this. All right then. The plump man seemed to have realized something, and he put the basket on the floor and said, You may enter. Thank you. Seeing that the other party had finally realized his true identity, Su Changqing nodded in satisfaction and raised his leg to walk through the door. However, before he could step into the courtyard, he suddenly heard the quiet mutterings of the plump man. What the heck, why is he putting up such a front? If he has no money, he should just say so. Taking a look, he sure has some cheek to say such shameless words. Who doesn't know that he's going in to learn? Is there anyone more brazen than him? To think that a person like him could become a master teacher as well. The standard sure has dropped. The plump man's disdain for Su Changqing couldn't be any more obvious from his words and tone. You. Su Changqing staggered, and he nearly spurted a mouthful of blood. He was the head of the martial arts school, one of the 10 great master teachers. To be told that he was shameless to his face. Burning fury welled up within him, and he felt as if he was going to go insane. He had never met anyone as infuriating as the plump man before. Didn't you see the disposition of an expert that I displayed up just now? Shouldn't my identity be obvious after that? Fine. I'll pay. Knowing that he would only be angered to death for arguing with such a fellow, and it would only drag down his reputation if he were to really squabble with him, Su Changqing gritted his teeth and threw a spirit stone into the basket. The spirit stone that just fell into the basket had a brilliant glow, and the overwhelming concentration of spiritual energy in it induced a disturbance in the spiritual energy in the surroundings. A high-tier spirit stone. The plump man's eyes lit up. He had thought that the other party was just another broke geezer trying to sneak into the lecture, but who could have known that he would whip out a high-tier spirit stone in the next instant? In the end, not only was that fellow not broke, he was even a wealthy man. I can go in now, right? Su Changqing harumphed in displeasure. Wait, let me get your change. A high-tier spirit stone is worth around 10,000 middle-tier spirit stones, and the cost of the lesson is 200 middle-tier spirit stones. So, I'll return 9,800 middle-tier spirit stones to you, the plump man said as his hands fumbled through the basket to take out spirit stones to return the change to the other party. There's no need for it. Su Changqing waved his hands haughtily. A high-tier spirit stone might be an invaluable treasure in the eyes of others, but as one of the 10 great master teachers, a Saint Realm One Dan pinnacle expert, it was nothing much to him. Great. It just so happens that I don't have the money to give the change to you too, the plump man said with glowing eyes. Once again, Su Changqing felt a stifled feeling in his chest. What the heck was this? How could a man be so shameless? Why did Shui Zhenyang bring such a fellow here? Wasn't this a clear disgrace to the martial arts school? The more he thought about it, the more furious Su Changqing felt. Suppressing his urge to slap the plump man to death, he entered the backyard. However, before he could get far, the plump man behind him shouted, "Look, the slightly aged student ahead has generously given us a tip of 9,800 middle-tier spirit stones. You should all learn from his example." Su Changqing's eyebrows twitched uncontrollably, and he nearly lost his sanity in that very instant. Tip. Learn from my example. He was only intending to sneak here to see what was going on and teach Shui Zhenyang a harsh lesson. But somehow, he ended up becoming yet another student coming here to listen to the lecture, and he even paid an additional tip for it. The heck? He wouldn't be able to cleanse his reputation now even if he were to jump into the Hongyuan Lake. And as he had expected, the next moment, the students in the area turned their gazes to him. It's school head Su. Not only did school head Su come, he even paid the school fee and gave such a huge tip to them. Impressive. It looks like he acknowledges the formidable prowess of Zheng Laoshe, Lu Laoshe, and Wang Laoshe as well. Indeed. Seeing that even their school head had attended the lecture and paid a generous tip for it, a huge commotion broke out amidst the crowd. 2 of the students of the martial arts school rushed up to him and invited him to the front. School head, you are here as well. The front seats are better, so why don't you come over here? Su Changqing's body swayed weakly, and his vision darkened. Front seats are better. I am here to cause trouble, not to listen to the lecture. Indeed, school head. Our faction leader is currently waiting for you there, so why don't we head there together, another student added. Faction leader. Fine, let's see what in the world is he up to. Su Changqing felt so stifled that he could vomit blood. However, it would only be more embarrassing if he were to remain there as a spectacle for the other students. Thus, he decided to find his wretched disciple and teach him a lesson instead. Squeezing through the crowd, they soon arrived at the front row before the podium. Teacher, you are here. Upon seeing Su Changqing, Shui Zhenyang immediately bowed respectfully. Just what in the world are you up to? On the other hand, as soon as Su Changqing caught sight of Shui Zhenyang, all of the fury that had been bubbling within him came bursting forth. Instead of answering his teacher's question, Shui Zhenyang pointed to the podium and said, Teacher, calm down. Try listening to the lecture first. Listen to the lecture. As angry as Su Changqing was, seeing at the entranced looks of the students in the area, he still decided to suppress his rage and turned his attention to the stage. The one who was currently lecturing was a young lady only 16 or 17 years old. She had a beautiful face which was on par with even the school belles such as Hu Yaoyao and Dong Xian. In essence, leg arts can be defined as the movement of one's legs and feet. As we know, walking and running can also be considered leg and foot movements as well. If we can regard these casual movements as a means to cultivate our leg arts as well, we will surely be able to further refine our mastery of leg arts. Most of leg arts that we cultivate is focused on technique. Take for example the whirlwind kick, Hanyang kick, and raging adamantium kick. There are simply far too many leg arts that I can list that can be classified under this category. However, this is a gross misinterpretation of the essence of leg arts. The core function of a leg is to move, so naturally, in order to bring out the true strength of a leg art, we should not focus merely on the technique of the kick but. The young lady spoke clearly and fluently, showing no hint of nervousness or her usual shyness at all. Su Changqing initially thought nothing of it, but the more he listened, the more shocked he became. Eventually, his face started to twitch in agitation. One could recognize a true expert the moment they made a move. As the head of the martial arts school, as well as a 6-star pinnacle master teacher, he possessed deep insight into the comprehension of battle techniques. Even though the other party only spoke about the basics of leg arts, her words precisely hit the nail on the head, guiding him directly to the core of leg arts. In fact, her understanding on some aspects was even deeper than his. It could be said that even if Su Changqing were to take her place, he would be unable to do as well as her. Is this really just the foundation of leg arts? There are actually so many variations to the basics of leg art? After hearing for a moment longer, Su Changqing couldn't help but frown. Unconventional had become the new convention of martial arts. It was important to make one's battle techniques complex or unorthodox in order to catch one's opponents off guard. On the other hand, the young lady was speaking of the orthodox martial arts, leaving out all of the unorthodox variations and maneuvers that most cultivators would incorporate into their movements. But for some reason, despite the simplicity of the moves she was explaining, it felt as if that was the best way to draw out the maximum prowess out of a leg art. However, one issue with any leg art is the difficulty to put one's full strength into a kick. Thus, I will be imparting a basic leg art to you that will allow you to gather the full strength of your body into your legs, allowing you to display the full might of your cultivation toward your opponent. The young lady on the podium explained. Most martial arts require one leg to support the body and another one to strike the opponent. Naturally, this results in one's strength being divided between the two legs, thus reducing the strength of one's kick significantly. However, if one could exert one's full prowess into a kick. As the notion struck Su Changqing, his eyes lit up in excitement. He immediately pricked up his ears and listened intently. A moment later, he slapped his thigh and exclaimed, "Indeed. If one were to execute a leg art in such a manner, that would solve the issue perfectly. This enhances the might and the speed of the kick, making it far deadlier than before. As simple as the technique is, it embodies the essence of leg arts. This is a perfect demonstration of how all battle techniques are built upon foundations. Musing over the content of the young lady's words, Su Changqing's heart leaped in excitement. While the content lectured by the other party might not be as profound as his, it was a perfect interpretation of the basics of leg arts. Even he would benefit greatly if he were to cultivate according to what the other party had said. At the same time, it also gave him a deep insight into the way to further his mastery of battle techniques. "Teacher, what's wrong?" Shui Zhenyang asked with a slight smile, seeing his teacher's expression. When he invited Zheng Laoshi, Senior Aunt Wang, and Senior Uncle Lu over, he knew that his teacher would surely be enraged at his actions. Nevertheless, he still chose to do so because he had deep trust in their capabilities. And he was right. In just a short moment, his teacher was also entranced by the lecture. Honestly speaking, even though the three of them weren't master teachers, their understanding of battle techniques far exceeded any master teacher he had met before. If they were to cultivate according to the methods they had proposed, they would be able to build an impeccable foundation for their battle techniques, and that would in turn allow them to advance their mastery of battle techniques swiftly. It was as if they were parting aside the clouds and showing them a whole new world above for them to reach for. How could anyone possibly not be taken in by that? Impressive. Su Changqing nodded. I never expected that there would be a person who could have such a thorough and deep interpretation of the basics of battle techniques. To be able to listen to such a lecture for just 200 middle-tier spirit stones, this is definitely a huge bargain. To master teachers like them, middle-tier spirit stones weren't anything much. Most seniors in the academy would have hundreds in their storage rings. It was more than worthwhile to pay this small sum to listen to such an exciting lesson. Through this lecture, many students would gain a refreshing insight into battle techniques, and the rise of the martial arts school wouldn't be too far away. Indeed. Shui Zhenyang nodded in agreement. If he wasn't deeply impressed by Zheng Yang's understanding of spearmanship, how could he, a top genius of the Master Teacher Academy, possibly be willing to take a person who was several decades younger than him as his teacher? At that moment, Su Changqing suddenly asked, "Zhenyang, what is the background of the young lady on the podium?" "I'm not too sure about the details either. I happened to meet them while I was walking through the streets of Hongyuan City yesterday." "Why? Is teacher interested in taking her in as your direct disciple?" Shui Zhenyang asked. "Taking her in as my direct disciple?" Su Changqing sighed deeply and shook his head. "With her deep understanding of battle techniques, how am I qualified to be her teacher? What I intend to do is to invite her to become the martial arts school's guest elder." Chapter 802, I'm not selling it anymore. Guest elder. Shui Zhenyang widened his eyes in shock. Even though guest elders might not wield as much authority as other elders in the academy, they had a higher standing than them. This was because they were formidable figures outside who had been invited to join the academy in order to boost its prestige and reputation. For example, the Emperor of Hongyuan Empire also held the position of a guest elder in the academy. Occasionally, he would visit the academy to conduct a lesson or two for the students, imparting his comprehension of cultivation to them. For a 17-year-old young lady to become a guest elder of the academy. Wasn't that a little too exaggerated? That's right. She is more than qualified for it. Su Changqing nodded seriously. It wasn't on a whim that he had made this decision. He had already considered the various complications before saying it. The other party was able to distill profound concepts into simple and direct explanations, provoking the listeners to think deeper into them. If such figures could become the guest elders of the martial arts school, they would definitely be able to attract more and more students to join them, enhancing the prowess and influence of the school. In time, it could overtake the physician school, beast tamer school, and perhaps even the apothecary school to become the number school of the Master Teacher Academy. The crux of a master teacher lay in clarifying doubts and imparting knowledge. In view of that, very few of them paid little regard to furthering their understanding of battle techniques. On top of that, advancing one's mastery of battle techniques took great effort, and it was highly dependent on aptitude as well. What made things even worse was that it wasn't a supporting occupation, making it a non-crucial aspect in raising one's master-teacher rank. As a result, despite being an impressive school that raised the fighting prowess of its students, there were very few who opted to join it, putting it in the bottom half of the 10 schools, ranking above only the less popular supporting occupations such as the Celestial Designer School, Painter School, Demonic Tunist School, and Terpsichore School. This was truly a disheartening sight. All along, Su Changqing had been dreaming of making the martial arts school bigger, and with an opportunity standing right before him, he would have to be a fool to not grasp it. Alright. I think it would still be best for teacher to bring this issue up with them personally, so I will invite them to teacher's room once Senior Wang's lecture ends, Shui Zhenyang said. As he was the one who had invited Zheng Laoshe, Senior Aunt Wang, and Senior Uncle Lu here, if the three of them could become guest elders of the school, it would reflect well on him as well. With such backing in the academy, his standing would rise as a result as well. By then, wouldn't it just be a walk in the park for him to teach a freshman a lesson? Okay. Su Changqing nodded before leaving the courtyard and walking to a room not too far away. Sometime later, the door to the room opened, and Shui Zhenyang walked in with Wang Ying, Zheng Yang, and Lu Yang behind him. Zheng Laoshe, Senior Aunt Wang, Senior Uncle Lu, this is my teacher, the head of the martial arts school, school head Su. Teacher, this is Zhenyang Laoshe. I am currently studying spearmanship from him. This is Senior Aunt Wang Ying, you saw her on the podium just now. And this is Senior Uncle Lu Yang. Shui Zhenyang hurriedly introduced them to one another. School head. Zheng Yang and the others glanced at one another with widened eyes. When they heard that someone was interested in meeting them, they were still wondering who it would be. They had never expected that it would be the head of the martial arts school. There's no need to be alarmed. The reason I have invited you here is to offer you the positions of guest elders at our martial arts school, Su Changqing said with a kind smile. Guest elders? Zheng Yang and the others were taken aback by those words. They were still students learning under Zhang Laoshe themselves, and yet in the blink of an eye, they were going to become guest elders of the Great Master Teacher Academy? Were they dreaming? Wasn't this honor far too great for them? Yes. Su Changqing nodded. May I know if you are willing to accept the offer? Of course we are. Zheng Yang and the others immediately nodded their heads in excitement. That's good. I'll make the application right now, and I should be able to give you your identity tokens by today afternoon at the latest. Seeing that he had their approval, Su Changqing nodded in satisfaction. After chatting for a moment longer, Su Changqing took his leave. Soon, only Zheng Yang, Wang Ying, and Lu Yang were left in the room. The trio glanced at one another with a dazed look in their eyes, seemingly still unable to believe what had just happened. A moment later, Wang Ying couldn't help but ask, this. We became elders of the academy, but Zhang Laoshe is still a student here. How are we going to report this matter to him? This. Zheng Yang and Lu Yang also scratched their heads in distress. They had been so overwhelmed by excitement upon hearing the invitation that they accepted it immediately without considering the implications. It was only after calming down that they realized the absurdity of the situation. For them to become elders of the academy when their teacher, Zhang Xian, was still a student himself. No matter how one looked at it, the matter just seemed ridiculous. This. Why don't we hide it from him for the time being? We will just take each day as it comes. Zheng Yang proposed after a moment of silence. Escape is always the easiest solution in times of dilemma. Without any hesitation, Wang Ying and Lu Yang nodded. Let's do that. It wasn't that they really wanted to hide it from Zhang Xian, but how were they supposed to bring up such a matter with him? What did you say? School head Su promoted those youngsters whom Shui Zhenyang brought over as guest elders. Hearing the report, Dong Xian and Long Sangyue nearly fainted. They had thought that school head Su would surely teach Shui Zhenyang a lesson, but who could have known that he would actually make those youngsters into guest elders of the martial arts school? How was that possible? Was it a joke? It's true. Not only that, I heard that school head Su went into seclusion as soon as he returned from the True Helios faction, only appearing later in the night. According to the rumors, he gained new insight into battle techniques, and in a spar with Vice School head Chen, he managed to defeat the latter in a single strike. The student continued. Defeated Vice School head Chen in a single strike. Even though Vice School head Chen's strength wasn't on par with School head Su, there wasn't a large disparity between their fighting prowess. In the previous spars, it would take them several dozens of blows before the victor would emerge. Yet, a single blow. Dong Xian's eyes were filled in incredulity. Are those youngsters whom Shui Zhenyang invited over really that formidable? I'm not too sure, but I heard that everyone who attended the lecture has achieved a breakthrough of some kind, and the overall strength of the True Helios faction has been raised significantly, the student replied. I see. Long Sangyue and Dong Xian tightly clenched their fists. It seems like we will have to be careful of the True Helios faction. A similar scene was occurring in the other student factions across the academy as well, and even the teachers were alarmed by the matter. For 3 youngsters who weren't even 20 to become guest elders of the academy, this was unprecedented in the history of the Master Teacher Academy. In an instant, the matter became a hot topic within the academy, and many freshmen also learned of the matter as well. However, while most people in the academy learned about the new young guest elders in the martial arts school, very few knew the names of the guest elders or their background. While a huge ruckus had broken out due to the 3 new guest elders, Zhang Xian had also finally returned back to the academy. The deadline which Vice School head Yu set was 2 days. I should still be able to make it in time. As soon as Zhang Xian entered the academy, he didn't return to his residence in the elite sector but headed straight to the Tower of Physicians. Even though Wei Ruyan's condition had stabilized after he had nourished her soul, the stable condition wouldn't last for too long. Treatment still had to be conducted as soon as possible or else her life would be at risk once again. Zhang Xian had already made a promise to the deceased Wei Changfeng. Regardless of what happened, he was determined to obtain the 10-leafed flower. Soon, Zhang Xian reached the Tower of Physicians. He headed straight for Vice School head's residence and knocked on the door. It was Sun Yuan who opened the door. You. Upon seeing Zhang Xian, Sun Yuan was astonished. He knew very well how dangerous the cloud mist ridge was. How could he possibly still be fine after heading to such a place? I am here to meet Vice School head Yu. Zhang Xian said. Considering that Vice School head Yu intentionally ordered Wei Changfeng to pick the cloud mist flower despite knowing the dangers there, it was obvious that he had intended to pick on him. As furious as Zhang Xian was, for Wei Ruyan's sake, he decided to rein in his fury for the time being. The 10-leafed flower was a rare saint herb that had the ability to heal one's soul. In the entire Hongyuan city, it was likely that Vice School head Yu would be the only one who possessed it. Wei Changfeng had already given up his life for it. Zhang Xian couldn't let his perseverance and sacrifice go in vain. Recovering from his daze after a moment, Sun Yuan nodded and gestured for Zhang Xian to enter. Please enter. Soon, he met Vice School head Yu in his main hall. Vice School head Yu, here is a cloud mist flower. As promised, I have brought it to you within 2 days. Without even bothering with pleasantries, Zhang Xian immediately flicked his wrist and took out a jade box containing the flower which Wei Changfeng had procured at the cost of his life. You obtained it? Vice School head was taken aback. He took the jade box over and opened it. A mysterious mist rose from the jade box, and the flower within exuded a refreshing fragrance that left one's cells moaning in comfort. Even without undergoing processing, the cloud mist flower was still an incredible plant with therapeutic effects. This is indeed the cloud mist flower. Vice School head Yu nodded. Since you have confirmed it, may I trade it for the 10-leafed flower now? Zhang Xian asked. I would have loved to do so, but that won't do. Vice School Yu shook his head. What I want is a living cloud mist flower which I can cultivate, but the one you have procured for me is already dead. You didn't fulfill my request, so how can I trade it for the 10-leafed flower? If you really want it, bring me a living cloud mist flower. A living cloud mist flower? Zhang Xian's face darkened. The other party didn't say anything of that sort when they made the deal 2 days ago. Yet, at this instant, he was using this kind of excuse to reject it. It was clear that he had no intention of giving the 10-leafed flower to them in the first place. Fine, if a living cloud mist flower is what you want, a living cloud mist flower is what you will get. Even though Zhang Xian was furious, he knew that it would do him no good to fall out with Yu Su right now. He would have to hold himself back until he obtained the 10-leafed flower from the other party. Thus, he took the jade box back from Vice School Head Yu's hands and infused a surge of his Heaven's Path Shinchi into the cloud mist flower. At the same time, he secretly took out a droplet of Earth Vein Spirit Essence and dripped it on its stalk. Even though it had been a day since the cloud mist flower had been harvested, it still managed to retain its freshness as it was stored in the jade box. As long as Zhang Xian could nourish it with his Heaven's Path Shinchi and Earth Vein Spirit Essence, it should be possible for him to revive it. As expected, under the nurturing of his Shinchi and the Earth Vein Spirit Essence, the slightly withered 10-leafed flower began to recover, and it started to exude an incredible fragrance. The cloud mist flower came back to life. Sun Yuan was stunned. Even Vice School Head Yu was dumbstruck by the scene before him as well. In the very first place, he had no intentions of selling the 10-leafed flower at all. He only brought up the cloud mist flower as an excuse to deal with Wei Changfeng and Zhang Xian. He had thought that he would be able to force Zhang Xian to back off by insisting that the cloud mist flower had to be alive, but in the blink of an eye, that fellow actually succeeded in doing so. All right. Now that the cloud mist flower is alive, you should be able to trade the 10-leafed flower for it now, right? Heaving a sigh of relief, Zhang Xian passed the jade box back to Vice School Head Yu. Not bad. Since the cloud mist flower is alive, I can trade it for the 10-leafed flower. However, my 10-leafed flower isn't mature yet, so I can't give it to you right now. Vice School Head Yu shook his head and said, from the current look of it, it'll take around 10 years for the 10-leafed flower to mature. So, I'm afraid that you will have to come back in 10 years. 10 years? Zhang Xian's eyes narrowed in fury. At the very start, you said that you would trade the 10-leafed flower for a cloud mist flower as long as we brought one over within 2 days. When I brought one over, you suddenly insisted that it had to be alive. Now that I have revived it, you started saying that I'll have to wait 10 years for it. What if you were to come up with some other excuse after 10 years? Are you doubting my integrity? Humph. Someone like you who has no respect for your elders wants to buy my 10-leafed flower. Vice School Head Yu's face darkened as he flung his sleeves. Leave. I won't be selling my 10-leafed flower anymore. Chapter 803, 100,000 academic credits? You won't be selling your 10-leafed flower. Hearing the other party's words, Zhang Xian's face turned livid. If not for this fellow, Wei Changfeng wouldn't have died. And despite all that had happened, he still refused to sell his 10-leafed flower. Indeed. When a master teacher acted shameless, they could be even more fearsome than the saint beasts of Cloud Mist Ridge. That's right. Vice School Head Yu waved his hands impatiently. I don't have the habit of selling immature herbs. Leave. Knowing that Wei Ruyan's life was at stake, Zhang Xian forcefully suppressed the rage bubbling within him and said, in other words, the reason you are unwilling to sell the 10-leafed flower to me is because it isn't mature yet. So, if it matures, you will sell it to me? That's right. Vice School Head Yu nodded. The medicinal properties of a herb will only be drawn out upon maturity, so as a physician, how can I sell an immature herb to another? I am not intentionally picking on you. As a master teacher, you should understand the logic behind this as well. I see. Since you insist that you won't sell an immature plant, I shall make it mature this very instant then. Glancing at the other party coldly, Zhang Xian walked to the 10-leafed flower in the herb garden, dabbed a few droplets of the earth vein spirit essence on it, and infused his heaven's path Qi into it afterward. Even though the earth vein spirit essence could speed up the growth of the 10-leafed flower as well, it would still take a day before it matured. By pairing it with his heaven's path Qi, Zhang Xian could further speed up the maturing process. Indeed. With the heaven's path Qi and earth vein spirit essence infused to the 10-leafed flower, the saint herb began growing at a visible pace. Within 10 minutes, 10 beautiful flowers had bloomed on the 10 leaves of the herb, and an invigorating fragrance drifted around it. This. Sun Yuan widened his eyes in shock. As a saint herb, the 10-leafed flower would ordinarily require at least 10 years of cultivation before it could bloom. Yet, the other party succeeded in just 10 minutes. Just how did he do it? Vice School Head You, since the 10-leafed flower has matured, you should be able to sell it now, right? Zhang Xian stood up and said. At that instant, Vice School Head Yu's face was already completely livid. When he said that the other party had to trade his 10-leafed flower for a cloud mist flower, the other party succeeded in bringing a cloud mist flower. When he said that the cloud mist flower had to be alive, the other party revived it. When he said that he couldn't sell it as the 10-leafed flower hadn't matured yet, the other party matured it on the spot. Was the other party actually there to slap his face? Seeing the other party's grave expression, Zhang Xian asked impassively, what? Now that the 10-leafed flower has matured, is Vice School You thinking of another reason to reject me? Humph. I brought this 10-leafed flower up painstakingly. If I insist on not selling it, will you snatch it from me? Vice School You's eyebrows shot up. How could I dare to snatch the possession of a vice school head? Zhang Xian shook his head. With a sharp glint in his eyes, he stared at Vice School Head Yu Su intently and said, I will ask you one last time. Are you certain that you won't sell the 10-leafed flower to me? That's right. I would rather my 10-leafed flower rot in the herb garden than sell it to someone as disrespectful and unruly as you. Vice School Head Yu harumphed. Very well. Zhang Xian turned around decisively and left the residence. He left just like that. Vice School Head Yu had thought that the other party would cause a ruckus over this issue, but he simply left without saying a word. Taking this entire scene into sight, Sun Yuan couldn't help but say, Teacher, it's just a 10-leafed flower. Since he has already gone that far, why don't you just sell it to him? There is really no need to make things so awkward. Audacious. Are you trying to preach to me? Vice School Head Yu Su frowned in displeasure. I dare not. Sun Yuan clasped his fist. I heard that that fellow has caused quite a bit of trouble in the academy. I fear that, if we offend him, it might bring trouble upon us as well. What a joke. I, Yu Su, a Saint Realm expert and the vice head of the physician school, should fear him? After all the things I have gone through, do you think that I would fear a mere student? Vice School Head Yu sneered coldly. But Sun Yuan was still worried. There had to be something special about that fellow for him to win the favor of Pavilion Master Imo, School Head Imo, School Head Zhao, and School Head Ran. If his teacher were to offend him, wouldn't that mean falling out with the 3 school heads and the head of the Master Teacher Pavilion as well? Vice School Head Yu harumphed coldly. No buts. If you're truly worried, why don't you follow that fellow then? If he dares to defame and spread malicious rumors about me before School Head Imo and the others, capture him immediately. I shall have him punished severely for slandering a higher-ranked master teacher. This. Sun Yuan was a little hesitant. What are you waiting for? It is a huge sin for a lower-ranked master teacher to comment blindly on the actions of a higher-ranked master teacher. Since he's a lower-ranked master teacher, he should act like one. If he really dares to defame me before others, He's simply courting death. Vice School Head Yu waved his hands impatiently. Yes, teacher. Since his teacher had already said so, there was nothing else Sun Yuan could do. Nodding, Sun Yuan backed out of the residence. It was indeed a crime for a lower-ranked master teacher to gossip about the actions of a higher-ranked master teacher without any concrete evidence. This was a rule in order to maintain order in the master teacher pavilion. Considering that Zhang Xian was only a 4-star master teacher whereas his teacher was a 6-star pinnacle master teacher, Zhang Xian could indeed be taken away if he dared to defame his teacher. After leaving the residence, Sun Yuan looked around and found the back silhouette of Zhang Shi a short distance away. Discreetly, he followed behind the other party. Even though he didn't approve of his teacher's way of dealing with this matter, he dared not defy his teacher's orders. Will he find school head Mo first or school head Zhao? Sun Yuan thought as he followed Zhang Xian from a distance away. He had heard quite a few rumors regarding Zhang Xian over the past few days. School head Zhao, school head Mo, and school head Wei all gave him preferential treatment. If Zhang Xian intended to deal with his teacher, it was likely that he would seek one of them to back him. However, given the esteemed standing of those three in the fact that they weren't from the school, the most that they would do was serve as mediators for this conflict. In order to maintain harmony in the academy, it was unlikely that they would do anything to his teacher. I think it is more likely for him to find school head Zhao. After all, the blacksmith school is the second largest school in the academy, so school head Zhao is in a better position to exert pressure on my teacher. Sun Yuan deduced. To his surprise, however, he suddenly saw the young man walking straight through the entrance of the Tower of Physicians. Why is he going to the Tower of Physicians? Sun Yuan blinked blankly in astonishment. Shouldn't the young man be running to the other schools to complain to the school heads and have them stand up for him? Why did he head to the Tower of Physicians instead? I should follow him to take a look. Sun Yuan hurriedly followed him. There was a huge crowd traveling into and out of the Tower of Physicians. Shortly after Zhang Xian walked in, he disappeared amidst the sea of people. Sun Yuan searched the surroundings for some time but to no avail. Left with no choice, he headed right to the front reception. It was a young lady who was manning the reception. Upon seeing Sun Yuan, she clasped her fist and bowed. Sun Laoshi. It was the same lady who had led Zhang Xian to Vice School Head Yu's residence that day. Hello. Have you seen Zhang Xian around here? Sun Yuan asked. Zhang Xian. The receptionist was slightly taken aback by the question. It's the young man whom you brought to meet Vice School Head Yu that day. Sun Yuan frowned. He is Zhang Xian. The receptionist covered her mouth in shock, and her eyes twinkled with excitement, as if having seen her idol. Over the past few days, there was probably not a single person in the academy who hadn't heard of the name Zhang Xian. Seeing the excited look on the other party's face, Sun Yuan was rendered speechless. He coughed loudly to regain the other party's attention before asking, cough. So, did you see him? What the heck is wrong with this? As a senior, do you really need to admire a freshman like that? Even if you do, the least you can do is not to express it so clearly in public. I did. He took an application form from me, saying that he intends to challenge the Wall of Dilemma to earn some academic credits. The receptionist replied. He intends to earn some academic credits at the Wall of Dilemma. Sun Yuan was stunned for a moment before shaking his head with a sigh. The Wall of Dilemma was also known as the Wall of Incurable Illnesses, and it could be found in every physician guild. Usually, difficult illnesses encountered which no existing physicians in a certain guild were able to treat would be listed on the wall so as to encourage the later generations to muse over the problem and solve it with their own capability. However, it was not without reason that these illnesses were known as incurable. The success rate of the challengers was extremely slim, and only a handful of physicians in history had succeeded in resolving even one illness on the Wall of Dilemma. In a sense, this was similar to the blacksmith school's passageway of records. There might be many people challenging it each year, but how many of them succeeded in beating the existing record? That's right, the receptionist replied. I thought that he would head straight to the blacksmith school to look up school head Zhao. Who would have thought that he would challenge the wall of dilemma instead? What is he up to? Just as Sun Yuan was plagued with doubts, a buzz so loud that it caused even the ground to tremor echoed throughout the Tower of Physicians. What is going on? As the center of the physician school, the Tower of Physicians was built with the most resilient materials. Unless something major had happened, a building this stable couldn't possibly shake. Hurry up, let's go and take a look. The wall of dilemma has collapsed. The wall of dilemma collapsed. But isn't it just a communication tool with the Physician Guild headquarters? How did it collapse? I heard that someone has just challenged the wall of dilemma, and within 10 minutes, he managed to solve all of the illnesses listed on it. Due to the sheer speed he solved the problems at, the wall of dilemma was unable to catch up and eventually collapsed. Unable to catch up. Indeed. Information transfer over long distance is a very energy-consuming process. The wall of dilemma uses high-tier spirit stones in order to process the information written on our side and transfer it over to the headquarters. Yet, I heard that the current challenger solved several hundred illnesses written on the wall within 10 minutes. Every single one of the illnesses written on the wall of dilemma is complex and requires a thorough treatment method. As a result, the sheer amount of information the wall of dilemma had to process resulted in a burden exceeding its limit, thus eventually causing its collapse. Just as Sun Yuan was perplexed by the situation before him, he heard discussions ahead of him, and the crowd abruptly began rushing toward the wall of dilemma to watch the commotion. He solved the problem so quickly that the wall of dilemma was unable to handle it and collapsed. Sun Yuan widened his eyes, unable to believe what he had just heard. Was that even possible? He had attempted the problems on the wall of dilemma before, and every single one of them was exceedingly difficult. Even if his teacher was here today, he would find it hard to solve even a single problem without pondering over it for several days. How could there exist a person who could solve all of the questions within 10 minutes? Could that person be Zhang Xian? Suddenly, Sun Yuan recalled the words of the receptionist and subconsciously turned his gaze over, only to see the latter with widened eyes. Is there anyone else who challenged the wall of dilemma today? Sun Yuan hurriedly asked. No. He's the only one. The receptionist replied with a dazed look in her eyes, as if she couldn't believe what had just happened either. Is it really him? Sun Yuan muttered under his breath as he felt his heart turning cold in apprehension. Unable to hold himself back, he instructed, "Take me over to have a look." Thus, the duo rushed over to the wall of dilemma, only to see the huge room being reduced to shambles, and smoke was currently puffing out of it. A middle-aged man climbed out from the ruins with a face caked with dust. Sun Yuan hurriedly walked up to ask, "Hu Shi, what happened?" Hu Shi was also a vice school head Yusu's student, as well as his junior. He was in charge of looking after the wall of dilemma. It's Zhang Xian. He came here and solved all of the problems on the wall of dilemma. Due to accumulating too many academic credits, the system exceeded its limit, resulting in the entire room's collapse. Hu Shi explained with quivering lips. Accumulated too many academic credits? Sun Yuan was taken aback. Indeed. It's not like you don't know the situation with the wall of dilemma. In order to encourage students to challenge it, it's set in a manner such that the more questions one solves in a given period of time, the more academic credits one will be awarded. If a person solved a question in 2 hours, they would earn 1 academic credits. If a person solved 2 questions, they would earn 2 academic credits for the second question, thus earning a total of 3 academic credits. Going by this pattern, a person who solves 3 questions will earn 6 academic credits, so on and so forth. Hu Shi explained. Sun Yuan nodded. There was indeed such a rule for the wall of dilemma. The faster one solved the problems, the more academic credits one would earn. This system was implemented to challenge the analytical ability of students. After all, it was common for a physician to be overloaded with patients, so it was imperative for physicians to be able to formulate a treatment method using minimal time as well so that they could treat more patients. That Zhang Xian managed to solve more than 500 questions within 5 minutes. As a result, the academic credits he earned were far more than the number the entire physician school possessed at the moment. On top of that, the system was also overclocked, thus resulting in the current state of affairs. Hu Shi explained. He earned more academic credits than the entire physician school possesses. Hearing those words, Sun Yuan felt his vision turning dark, and he nearly fainted on the spot. Are you saying that he actually earned more than 100,000 academic credits? Chapter 804, Sun Yuan's mental breakdown. As academic credits were the currency of the academy, their distribution had to be regulated to avoid inflation. Thus, every 10 years, the 10 schools would be given a set number of academic credits to distribute to the students. The amount was determined by many factors, such as the total number of students in the school, the number of occupation promotions in recent years, the accomplishments of its students. As the 5th largest school in the academy, judging from recent history, it would usually be given at least 100,000 academic credits to distribute for the following 10 years. As students spent their academic credits on using the services of the physician school, such as accessing the library or purchasing valuable herbs in the school, the physician school would earn back the academic credits, forming a mini-economy in itself. Given that Zhang Xian could cause the wall of dilemma to be unable to process the distribution of academic credits, resulting in a severe error that caused its collapse. That could only mean to say that the academic credits he had earned exceeded 100,000. That was the entire budget the physician school had to live off for the next 10 years. And yet, it was gone in an instant. If there aren't enough academic credits for the teachers to distribute to the students as rewards for the missions and tasks. Darn it, the physician school is in deep trouble. Realizing the implications of Zhang Xian's actions, Sun Yuan's mouth twitched violently, and he nearly burst into tears. His teacher, Yu Su, happened to be in charge of regulating the distribution of academic credits in the physician school. For 10 years' worth of academic credits to be earned by a single individual. This meant that they had no more academic credits to award to the other students. Earning academic credits was no easy task. Students had to undergo laborious tasks or life-threatening missions just to earn a couple of them. If they were to realize that they would be awarded nothing at the end of their efforts. At this moment, Sun Yuan could already see the huge pandemonium that would arise due to the displeased students. Furthermore, the distribution of the academic credits was a major affair concerning the development of the students. If the physician school was unable to compensate its students properly for their efforts, that would be flouting of the rules of the academy as well. As the vice school head in charge of its regulation, his teacher would surely be severely punished. Sun Yuan had thought that the fellow would rush to the blacksmith school to complain to school head Zhao, but who knew that just by challenging a wall of dilemma, he had already managed to corner his teacher. Without a doubt, students would start withdrawing from the physician school due to this matter, and its overall prowess would fall rapidly. Perhaps, by the end of this decade, they might very well be the last place among the 10 schools. And for allowing such an incident to happen under his watch, his teacher would indubitably be stripped of his responsibilities. Indeed. Having realized this much as well, Hu Shi also had a bitter smile on his face. Right, where is Zhang Xian? Why isn't he here? At this moment, Sun Yuan suddenly realized that the culprit of this mess had disappeared, so he couldn't help but ask. Zhang Xian. After clearing the wall of dilemma, he headed straight for the malady platform. Hu Shi said. Realizing that it was possible that Zhang Xian wasn't quite done yet, Sun Yuan's body trembled in apprehension at what that could potentially happen next. Fearfully, he asked, malady platform. What is he going to do there? The malady platform has a unique mechanism that allows physicians to experience illnesses themselves so that they could better understand its symptoms, and they can also treat themselves so as to verify the effectiveness of their proposed treatment method. If he is heading there, I guess he should be trying to assess his current proficiency in the way of medicine, Hushi replied. The malady platform allowed a physician to put themselves in the shoes of the patients to better understand what they would be going through, thus building compassion within them for those who were suffering. At the same time, through verifying their treatment methods here, they could avoid mistreating their patients. Since he was able to overcome even the wall of dilemma, does he really need to verify his proficiency in the way of medicine? Sun Yuan rolled his eyes. The wall of dilemma was already the most difficult test in the entire physician school. Given that Zhang Xian was able to solve over 500 illnesses within 5 minutes, would he still need to verify his proficiency in the way of medicine at the malady platform? This crap. At this moment, Hushi also realized what was going on. Just as he was about to rush over with Sun Yuan, a loud rumbling suddenly echoed from afar, and smoke could be seen rising in the distance. It seemed something else had collapsed too. Sun Yuan's mouth twitched uncontrollably. That's where the malady platform is. Let's hurry over to take a look. With Hushi and a few others, they hurriedly rushed to the malady platform, and the sight before them upon reaching it left them staggering weakly. At this moment, the massive building housing the malady platform was reduced to ruins, and a middle-aged man was looking at the rubble with a dazed look. Zhou Shi, what happened? Sun Yuan hurried forward to ask. Zhou Shi was also a direct disciple of Vice School head Yu Su, Sun Yuan's disciple. He was in charge of maintaining the malady platform. A student said that he wanted to verify a new treatment method he had, so I allowed him to enter after paying the required academic credits. Who knew that, within 3 minutes of his entry, this happened? Zhou Shi's face was pale, and his lips was quivering in agitation. Knowing that this wasn't the time to be concerned about the collapse of the malady platform, Sun Yuan asked anxiously, what is the freshman called, and where is he now? I believe his name is Zhang Xian, and from the direction in which he was heading. I think he's going to the Ancestor Forest. Zhou Shi replied. Ancestor Forest? Sun Yuan was taken aback. The Ancestor Forest is a place where the will of the predecessors lingers alongside their tombstones. Engraved on their tombs are the most outstanding feats they achieved in their lives and how they had achieved them. It serves as an inspiration to the later generation to learn from their example and their wisdom. Why would Zhang Xian head there? If the wall of dilemma and malady platform were premises to verify one's expertise as a physician and earn academic credits, the Ancestor Forest would be a place to admire and worship the predecessors. All renowned physicians of the Master Teacher Academy would have a tombstone erected for them there. The illnesses which they had discovered a cure for, along with the cure itself, would be inscribed on their tombstones alongside their names so that the later generations could admire their work. It was nothing more than a platform to motivate the current students, and there was not a single academic credit that could be earned there. Why would Zhang Xian head there? I think we should still go over to take a look, Hushi said. Yes. Sun Yuan nodded in agreement. Even though they couldn't see how Zhang Xian could break anything in the Ancestor Forest, the Ancestor Forest had absolutely nothing to do with tests or academic credits. There was simply something extraordinary about him that it would be unwise to gauge him via common sense. It was still best for them to take a look themselves. As such, they rushed off to the Ancestor Forest, but as usual, before they could reach their destination, the ground shook intensely, and the sound of countless tombstones shattering sounded. The violent shaking caused even cracks to appear on the ground, and even the resilient Tower of Physicians was shaking violently. What happened? Rushing into the Ancestor Forest, they realized that the entire area had been reduced to rubble. Sun Yuan and the others felt as if they were going insane. This was a place to honor the glorious deeds of their predecessors. How could it be destroyed as well? Did Zhang Xian destroy them with his own hands? The reason the wall of dilemma and malady platform collapsed was due to Zhang Xian's overwhelming capability exceeding the limits of the mechanism, resulting in its own collapse. Considering that the destruction occurred due to the limitations of the physician school's facilities, it would be unreasonable to lay blame on him. After all, he hadn't flouted any rules at all he did was challenge that which should be challenged. But for the ancestor forest, there was no examination involved here, so there shouldn't be any mechanism for him to overwhelm. Could he have created the ruins here with his own hands? To intentionally destroy the property of the physician school, not to mention disrespecting the predecessors and their heritage, that was a grave sin that could have Zhang Xian sent straight to the tribunal of master teachers to be judged. How could this be? At this instant, a middle-aged man with a ghastly pale face walked over with a stupefied expression on his face. It was as if he had just suffered a blow so great that he was losing his mind. Yi Shi! Sun Yuan shouted. Yi Shi was also his junior, and he was in charge of maintaining the ancestor forest. As the Tower of Physicians was under Vice School Head Yu's jurisdiction, the facilities in the area were mainly taken care of by his students. Seeing that Sun Shi, Hu Shi, and the others were standing before him, Yi Shi finally snapped out from his daze. Gesturing to the rubble behind him, he exclaimed with a defeated look, "Wrong. To think that they are all wrong. Yi Shi, what happened? Did someone destroy the ancestor forest using brute force?" Sun Yuan asked. Brute force? Yi Shi shook his head and sighed deeply. Take a look yourself. Without explaining, Yi Shi took out a record crystal and tossed it over to Sun Yuan and the others. Catching it, Sun Yuan hurriedly infused his Jinqi into the record crystal to activate it. With a flash of light, a completely unharmed ancestor forest suddenly appeared before their eyes. Following which, a young man walked into the scene. Who else could the young man be if not Zhang Xian? Zhang Xian swiftly walked up to the first tombstone. The tombstone contained the writings of the first head of the physician school. Inscribed on the tombstone were the contributions he had made to humanity in his lifetime, the most significant one being formulating a cure for the demon hound affliction. The demon hound affliction was a bizarre disease that was rampant in that period of time. Those who were bitten by a hound-type beast would begin shedding their skin and growing fur within 3 months. A few days after the transformation began, they would lose their rationality and turn into monsters that would bite anyone they saw. Those who were bitten by the infected would be inflicted with the demon hound affliction as well. What made things worse was that the disease was so potent that not even Saint Realm experts could suppress the symptoms. Due to its nature, the disease spread swiftly, causing great calamity to the human race. The first head of the physician school, through half a year of tireless research, finally managed to formulate a vaccine against the demon hound affliction. However, the vaccine was only effective for prevention, it couldn't save those who had already been transformed. In order to suppress the plague, the academy had to dispatch countless experts to slay those who had been infected and cremate their corpses, resulting in a huge death toll. Even though the first head of the physician school failed to save those who had already been infected, he played a major role in suppressing the plague, saving many innocent lives through doing so. He was honored for his contribution in that calamity, and his story was passed down from generation to generation. Just as Sun Yuan and the others were perplexed by what Zhang Xian was going to do, they saw the latter glance at the tombstone briefly before speaking. The demon hound affliction is a disease caused by the virus present in the blood of hound-type beasts. It can be easily cured by taking 2 qian-1 of sunflower hemp, 4 qian of crimson frond, half ouyang of violet dawnstalk, and a pinch of a hound-type beast's heart flesh. A disease that can be cured so easily, and yet you had all of the afflicted killed and cremated. On top of that, the vaccine you came up with is at least dozens of times more expensive than mine as well. I really don't understand how you can feel proud of your achievements and have a tomb erected here. Are you that intent on having the later generations learn of your shameful failure? Kacha. Hearing those words, the will contained within the tombstone realized that there was indeed a far better medicine to the one he had formulated back then, and he had wronged those who were killed in the plague. The tombstone began to shake violently before abruptly bursting into smithereens. Without sparing the first tombstone a second glance, Zhang Xian walked on to the second tombstone, and just like before, he took a glance and spoke a few words, and the will contained within felt ashamed of its deeds too and broke apart. The same scene occurred again and again as he walked down the path. From the moment he glanced at the tombstone to the moment he spoke, there was only an interval of 2 breaths. But despite that, each time he spoke, a tombstone would surely burst apart. In other words, the prescription that he had proposed was even more advanced, effective, and easier to concoct than the ones the predecessors had come up with. In a battle in the way of medicine against the predecessors, he was able to display such overwhelming knowledge that left the latter ashamed of themselves, to the point that they would willingly erase all traces of themselves. The mouths of Sun Yuan, Hu Shi, and the others twitched at the sight before them. They finally understood why Yi Shi would look so defeated. Guarding the ancestor forest, he had been studying their wisdom day after day, and he was filled with awe and respect for them. But a man suddenly walked in and said that everything was wrong, and he even won the acknowledgement of the predecessors at that. It was extremely fortunate that his mind didn't break immediately. Wall of Dilemma, Malady Platform, and the Ancestor Forest. 3 of the most important facilities of the Tower of Physicians have been destroyed. Just what kind of monster did teacher offend? Taking another glance at the ruins of previously majestic lands, Sun Yuan shook his head and sighed deeply. To point out the mistakes in the predecessors' deeds and induce the erasure of the flawed solutions on the tombstone, preventing them from misleading future generations, not only did Zhang Xian not err, he had even contributed greatly to the Physician Guild. If the Physician Guild were to learn of this matter, they would surely reward him handsomely for it. But still, to be able to come up with even more brilliant solutions to difficult diseases that took the predecessors months or even years to formulate. Just how did that fellow do it? Wait, where is Zhang Xian? After a moment of shock, Sun Yuan suddenly realized that he still hadn't found Zhang Xian, and he quickly looked around to find him. Sun Laoshi, bad news. Zhang Shi has headed to the higher floors of the Tower of Physicians. He intends to take the physician examination. All of a sudden, a student running toward them shouted frantically. However, before he could finish his words, the ground shook yet again. Following which, the massive tower in the distance abruptly collapsed, and countless rock fragments rained down on the earth. The Tower of Physicians is gone as well. Sun Yuan cried. Chapter 805, Life and Death Physician Duel. The Tower of Physicians consisted of 7 floors in total. The first floor was mainly used for miscellaneous matters, such as patient diagnosis, the Wall of Dilemma, sales of medicinal herbs, and such. From the second floor onward were the mechanisms for the 1-star to 6-star physician examination. Just like the ocean of weapons, mechanisms and formations were incorporated into the Tower of Physicians to create a simulation for the examinees. As such, not only would they have to possess deep understanding of the way of medicine, they must be experienced in treating patients as well. Treating an illness was unlike smithing or pill forging. A single illness could easily have thousands of different methods to cure it. One had to assess the patient's constitution and overall condition before choosing the most suitable one. As such, the examination in the Tower of Physicians couldn't be as routine as the one in the ocean of weapons. Thus, the wills of countless predecessors had been left within the Tower of Physicians to assess the proficiency of the examinees. The wills of the predecessors wouldn't have much trouble conducting examinations for others, but when it came to Zhang Xian was able to even criticize the correct answers left behind by the predecessors in the ancestor forest to such a degree that they seemed completely worthless. If he were to come up with far better solutions than those of the predecessors in the Tower of Physicians, they would surely feel ashamed of their own ignorance and think that they were unworthy of assess the work of others. Thus, just like what happened in the ancestor forest, the Tower of Physicians ended up collapsing as well. It had been millenniums since the physician school first came into existence, and yet, the crystallization of countless predecessors' wisdom over all those years couldn't even compare with that fellow. It was no wonder school head Mo, school head Xiao, and even the reserved school head Wei would regard with him respect and give him their personal tokens. That fellow was a complete monster. Sun Yuan and the others hurriedly drove their Jinqi to form a barrier to protect themselves from the flying rubble thrown out from the collapsing building. At this point, Sun Yuan and his juniors were feeling their hearts bleed within. Vice School Head Yu was in charge of the affairs concerning the Tower of Physicians. For Zhang Xian to have destroyed the entire place while abiding by the rules, this meant that all responsibility for the damage would have to be shouldered by their teacher alone. Wasn't it just a mere 10-leafed flower? To think that single darn flower would cause the doom of the physician school. This wasn't just a matter of the destruction of facilities and the reparation cost, but the reputation of the physician school as well. For a freshman to literally destroy the four most prided assets of the physician school with his knowledge, and on top of that, not a single one lasted more than 10 minutes. Furthermore, all of the academic credits had been swiped by him, leaving the physician school currently deep in debt with the pending payments for the missions and tasks undertaken by students. Without a doubt, it wouldn't be long before the students began abandoning the physician school, and by the next year, it would fall to the very bottom in the rankings, beneath even the Terpsichore school. Just what the heck was this? No, I must inform teacher of the matter immediately. Just as Sun Yuan was feeling deep desolation within, he suddenly recalled his teacher. When he left, his teacher was still gleeful about teaching a freshman a lesson, not realizing the calamity he had just brought upon the physician school. Thus, he immediately rushed from the ruins to Vice School Head Yu's small residence. Stepping through the doors, he saw Vice School Head Yu watering the plants leisurely, oblivious to the mess that had happened outside. In order to retain a dense concentration of spiritual energy within the herb garden, a formidable formation had been set up in the courtyard. But while spiritual energy was unable to escape, sound was unable to enter as well. Despite the huge commotion outside, isolated from the rest of the world, the herb garden remained unaffected. Seeing that it was Sun Yuan, Yu Su raised his gaze and glanced at him. You are back. How is it? Did you capture that fellow? Sun Yuan's lips twitched. I didn't. You didn't? Did he not go to school head Xiao or the others to complain? You know the rules as well, defaming a higher-ranked master teacher warrants the death penalty, Yu Su sneered coldly. He didn't find the other school heads to complain. Instead, he went to the Tower of Physicians. Seeing that his teacher was still immersed in his world, Sun Yuan wasn't too sure how he could break the news to him. He went to the Tower of Physicians. For what? Yu Su was perplexed. Not knowing where to start, Sun Yuan said, Teacher, I think it might be better if you head outside to see for yourself. See for myself? Yu Su was growing more and more intrigued by the baffling words his student was spouting. Nevertheless, seeing the grim expression on his student's face, he nodded and left his residence. As soon as he stepped out of the door, a sight of ruins appeared before his eyes. The towering Tower of Physicians from before was nowhere to be seen. This rubble, is the Tower of Physician? What happened? Was there an enemy attack? The huge contrast between what he expected to see and what he saw left Yu Su on the verge of insanity. That was the Tower of Physicians, the trademark building of the physician school. For it to collapse all of a sudden. Who was the culprit? Could it be the otherworldly demons? No, it is. But just as Sun Yuan was about to speak, a resounding voice echoed throughout the entire physician school. I, Zhang Xian, request the physician headquarters permission for a life-and-death physician duel against 6-star physician, Vice School Head Yu Su. I beseech your approval. Hong Long. The next moment, a physician emblem flew into the air, and with a brilliant flash of light, a massive word appeared in the sky: permitted. Life and Death Physician Duel. Sun Yuan's vision darkened. Life and Death Physician Duel was a platform for physicians to resolve irreconcilable grudges between them through a duel, somewhat similar to how the master-teacher confrontation worked. As long as the headquarters gave its permission, both parties would be able to decide on a type of duel to resolve their grudges. So, the reason he took the 6-star physician examination is for this. Realization suddenly struck Sun Yuan. Typically speaking, the headquarters would only approve of life and death physician duel between physicians of similar rank. Thus, Zhang Xian decided to get his 6-star physician emblem first. However, entering the higher levels of the Tower of Physicians to take the physician examination required academic credits, which Zhang Xian lacked as a freshman. That was why he went for the Wall of Dilemma first. In other words, Zhang Xian was intending to challenge his teacher in a battle of their medicinal knowledge and force him to his death. This duel was indeed the most straightforward and official way to destroy another physician in public. It was no wonder that fellow specially asked his teacher one last time before leaving. It seemed like he was indeed giving his teacher one last chance. However, it was a pity that his teacher thought little of the other party's threat, thinking that it was impossible for a mere student to do anything to him. But now, not only did the other party destroy the Tower of Physicians, he was even challenging his teacher to a life and death physician duel. What should they do now? Life and death duel? How conceited can you get? But that works fine by me too. I have been wanting to teach you a lesson as well. Since you are the one who came at me, don't blame me for getting nasty. Vice school head, you hadn't expected a freshman to dare challenge him to a life and death physician duel, and his face immediately darkened upon hearing those words. Flicking his wrist, he took out his physician emblem. Following which, he bit his finger and dripped a droplet of blood on the emblem. Hula! With a glimmer of light, the emblem flew into an air, and an authoritative voice boomed, "I, Yu Su, agree to the duel." Teacher. Not expecting his teacher to accept the duel without any hesitation, Sun Yuan's body shook weakly. Too overwhelmed with shock, he hadn't had time to explain to his teacher the various unbelievable feats that Zhang Xian had accomplished before his teacher suddenly accepted the duel in his moment of delay. This was truly a disaster. Just like the master-teacher confrontation, the life and death physician duel was overlooked by the headquarters. Once accepted, any party that backed out would be severely punished. Some had been stripped of their physician licenses due to this matter, and there were even a few who were killed outright. If it had been before, he would have surely thought that the freshman who dared to challenge his teacher was a fool seeking death. But after all he had seen, his instincts were telling him that even if his teacher went up against that fellow for 10,000 rounds, it was unlikely that he would win even a single round. Or to put it in other words, his teacher stood no chance at all. Nevertheless, as vice school head Yu's student, it was still his duty to warn him of the matter so that he could be prepared. Teacher, you shouldn't have agreed to the duel. That Zhang Xian isn't as simple as he looks. What's wrong? Seeing how little faith his student had in him, Yu Su's face darkened, and he harumphed coldly. He's just an insignificant fellow, there's nothing to fear. I shall make him learn the price of daring to stand against me. You should return to the residence first and heat up some fine wine for me. I should be done by the time it's warmed up. Then, ignoring Sun Yuan, he leaped into the sky, in the direction his emblem had flown to. In his view, no matter how talented Zhang Xian might be, he was only a 20-year-old brat. On the other hand, he had been immersed in the study of the way of medicine his entire life. To challenge him to a life and death physician duel, what else could that be other than committing suicide? Heat up some fine wine. Teacher. Sun Yuan nearly burst into tears. Indeed, there is someone who will be destroyed in a few moments, but that will be you and not Zhang Xian. Sun Yuan hurriedly shouted for his teacher, only to realize that the latter was too far to hear him. No, I have to inform him of this matter before it's too late. Sun Yuan said determinedly. If his teacher were to let his guard down in the duel on top of everything else, there truly would be no hope at victory whatsoever. Thus, Sun Yuan swiftly pursued his teacher. In the head of the apothecary school Lu Feng's residence, school head Imo clasped his fist and asked, "School head Lu, do you have any news regarding senior Byzantium Helios beast?" In response to the question, Lu Feng shook his head. Lu Feng was a tall old man with a black beard. Despite being the head of the apothecary school, the #1 school in Hongyuan Academy, he was dressed in exceptionally simple clothing, giving others the impression that he was an ordinary old man. "I have tried following all of the clues we have, and I have paid a personal visit to Leiyuan Peak as well. However, I am still unable to find anything significant yet," Lu Feng said worriedly. As soon as he had learnt that the Byzantium Helios beast had been captured by the otherworldly demons, he had immediately begun his investigation. However, despite 7 days' effort, he was still unable to find anything at all. At this point, he was starting to feel a little anxious inside. The longer it took them to find the Byzantium Helios beast's whereabouts, the slimmer the chances that he would be alive. Were they going to lose the old principal's tamed beast too, shortly after losing the old principal? I haven't been able to find anything either. I had the students of the Beast Tamer School ride their aerial beasts to search the surroundings, but there was no sign of the otherworldly demons or senior Byzantium Helios at all. It's as if they've disappeared into thin air. School head Imo shook his head and sighed deeply. He felt extremely helpless and frustrated by this issue. It was by his invitation that senior Byzantium Helios went to the Leiyuan Peak to invigilate the students' exam. But who could have known that he would disappear in the midst of the examination? If it wasn't for him, senior Byzantium Helios would have never gone missing. As such, school head Imo had always blamed himself for this matter. Alright, let's not talk about this anymore. The best we can do now is wish senior Byzantium Helios good luck. Lu Feng shook his head before turning to school head Imo once again and asked, "I heard that you are very interested in the freshman named Zhang Xian from the newest batch, and you intend to take him in as your direct disciple?" "There's indeed such a matter, but I fear that I don't have the fortune to do so." School head Imo replied with a bitter smile. "You don't have the fortune to do so?" Lu Feng was slightly perplexed. Just what kind of talent does that fellow have to make an old withered tree like you blossom? His affairs are truly incredible. You will understand once you hear his story. Stroking his beard, school head Imo was just about to tell the latter Zhang Shi's formidable deeds when the ground suddenly shook intensely. In the next moment, a deafening rumbling sounded in the distance. Following which, they saw the towering Tower of Physicians, which stood at the very center of the physician school, collapse abruptly. What happened? Narrowing his eyes, Lu Feng hurriedly rushed out of his residence and headed right for the physician school. However, before he could get far, he heard an impassive voice echoing resoundingly in the surroundings. "I, Zhang Xian, request the physician headquarters for a life-and-death physician duel against 6-star physician, Vice School Head Yu Su. I beseech for your approval." Chapter 806, Movements from All Fronts. Zhang Xian. Life and Death Physician Duel. School head Zhong and school head Imo glanced at one another, and their eyes slowly widened in shock. It was just a moment ago that they had begun talking about the other party when such a situation occurred. Just what in the world had happened? Wasn't that fellow a skilled beast tamer and a blacksmith? When did he become a physician as well? Not to mention, he was going to challenge Yu Su. Something big is going to happen. Let's head over to take a look. Anxious, school head Imo hurriedly left with school head Zhong, headed in the direction of the Tower of Physicians. What did you say? Zhang Xian is going to challenge Vice School Head Yu to a life-and-death physician duel. Is he insane? Long Cangyue widened his eyes in shock, unable to believe what he had just heard. Isn't that fellow a blacksmith and a terpsichore? When did he become a physician too? Dong Xian was also astonished by the news. Challenging Vice School Head Yu, a Saint Realm expert. Long Tsangyue's lips quivered in fear at that thought. As powerful as his Ashen Moon faction was in the academy, that was only relative to those small confrontations amongst the student populace. Yet, that fellow actually went head-to-head with a vice school head of the academy, challenging him to a life-and-death duel. Was he tired of living? It was just yesterday that the true Helios faction caused a huge uproar in the academy, and this fellow managed to top that. Let's go over to take a look. Dong Xian said with a bitter smile. They had thought that it was insane for the true Helios faction to bring in 3 youngsters to lecture them, but that fellow had to be completely out of his mind to go head-to-head against a vice school head. Was he trying to start a revolution? Yes. Not daring to waste a single second, the duo rushed out of the residence. Teacher, challenged Vice School Head Yu Su. What happened? In Zhang Xian's residence in the elite sector, Luo Qiqi was still pacing around the room, worried for her teacher's safety after he went to the Cloud Mist Ridge, when she suddenly received the news from Hu Yaoyao, and her body trembled in shock. That was sheer arrogance. The opponent was a vice school head and a 6-star pinnacle physician. To challenge such an opponent to a life-and-death duel given his current strength. Wasn't that just madness? No, I must stop him. Unable to remain seated, Luo Qiqi leaped up and rushed for the physician school. The light fragrance of flowers drifted in a tranquil and vast courtyard in the Master Teacher Academy. A beautiful figure stood amidst a field of flowers with her hands behind her back. That image felt so peaceful that it seemed as if it could have been a painting. Her silky, black hair fell on her snowy robe as if long streaks of ink, and the vibrant colors of the flowers in the surroundings seemed to complement her disposition, creating an inexplicably bewitching sight. He is challenging the 6-star pinnacle physician, Yu Su. The figure turned around, revealing her alluring face. It was the young lady who had captured Zhang Xian's heart, Luo Ruoxin. Back then, after learning that Zhang Xian was fine, she had returned back to her residence, and the two of them hadn't met each other since. Who would have thought that the next time she heard of his name would be when he challenged a vice school head to a duel? He sure is gutsy. Luo Ruoxin's lips curled up into a faint smile. Even though she hadn't spent much time with Zhang Xian, she did know that he had a daring side to him. Back then, with just a cultivation of transcendent mortal Dan, he stepped into an encirclement of consonant spirit realm spirit beasts to save her. Such a feat in itself took extraordinary courage. For him to go to the extent of challenging Yu Su to a life-and-death physician duel, it seems the latter must have committed some kind of intolerable crime. Based on her impression of Zhang Xian so far, he didn't seem like a person who would get angry over minor matters. For him to go to this extent, it seemed that Yu Su must have done something deplorable. I should go and take a look, too. With a slight smile, she stepped forward lightly, and in a blink of an eye, she had already disappeared from the courtyard. In the true Helios faction, Zheng Yang and the others were currently sitting at a table filled with sumptuous dishes, enjoying the highest of privileges. Uncle Chang, teacher has challenged a vice school head to a duel. But despite the delicacies before her, Wang Ying was so worried that she couldn't find the appetite to eat. It's just a duel, no worries. Don't you have confidence in your teacher's prowess? That vice school head will be utterly destroyed by the time we are done with this feast, so you can rest assured. Sun Chang said as he stuffed another large piece of spirit beast meat into his mouth. But there are no buts, eat. Nothing can possibly happen to your teacher. Sun Chang waved his hands casually. Besides, there's nothing you can do even if you head there too. Do you know anything about the way of medicine at all? This. A bitter look appeared on Zheng Yang and the others' faces. Unable to share their teacher's burden, they couldn't help but feel helpless at that instant. Enough, there's no need to feel conflicted over this matter. Just eat your food. Your teacher might look docile usually, but there has never been a single occasion where he has not succeeded when he makes a move. If you're still worried, we'll head there once we are done eating. Sun Chang said while stuffing his mouth with more food. You must be joking. If it is a matter which even the young master is unable to resolve, there is nothing we will be able to do there either. Not to mention, is it even possible for there to be something which the young master and the old master are unable to resolve in this world? All right then. Seeing how calm Sun Chang was, and recalling the various incredible deeds that their teachers had done, Zheng Yang and the others slowly lifted their chopsticks and began to dig in. Ha ha ha, he's truly courting death. Vice School Head Yu's mastery in the way of medicine is beneath only that of School Head Zhong Dingchun, making him one of the top physicians of Hengyuan Empire. To challenge him to a life-and-death physician duel, he must be tired of living. Seems like there will be a good show ahead. That freshman has allowed fame to get to his head, he has started to forget his place. To dare to provoke even the vice school head, just how arrogant can a person get? As Zhang Xian's resounding voice reached the corners of the Master-Teacher Academy, a huge uproar followed. Some were shocked, some were agitated, but most were waiting to see him make a fool of himself. Establishing the Xianxian faction amidst the oppression of the other student factions, causing a huge commotion in the blacksmith school, winning the favor of 3 school heads. Zhang Xian had been in the spotlight ever since he had entered the academy. While there were some who admired his capability, there were naturally also a few who were unsatisfied with him. There were many seniors who were waiting for him to fall off his high horse. Thus, upon hearing that he had challenged the vice school head of the physician school, they immediately rushed over to watch his fall from grace. On a platform not too far away from the ruins of what used to be the Tower of Physicians, Zhang Xian stood proudly with a cold gleam in his eyes. It was not without a reason that he caused such a huge commotion with his challenge. His motive was simple: deterrence. He simply didn't have the time or effort to deal with everyone who came his way. Each occupation had its own way to resolve conflicts amongst its members. The life-and-death physician duel was the official way for physicians to deal with irreconcilable grudges amongst themselves. It was one thing for Yu Su to refuse to sell the 10-leafed flower, but he had intentionally misled Wei Changfeng to cause his death. There was no way Zhang Xian could forgive him. Given Zhang Xian's previous rank, the Physician Guild would never acknowledge his request for a life-and-death physician duel with Yu Su. Understanding that much, he could only obtain a 6-star emblem first. Just as Sun Yuan had deduced, the reason he went to challenge the Wall of Dilemma was to earn the academic credits. Despite possessing the favor of 3 of the school heads, Zhang Xian didn't have a single academic credit on him. Naturally, he wasn't able to enter the Tower of Physicians. Zhang Shi, how did you end up challenging Vice School Head Yu to a life-and-death physician duel? At that moment, a figure suddenly appeared right in front of Zhang Xian. It was the head of the blacksmith school, Zhao Bingxiu. He had rushed over as soon as he received the news, so he arrived even earlier than school head Mo. What happened? Do you need me to mediate in the conflict between you two? It's not that I don't trust you, but Vice School Head Yu's proficiency in the way of medicine is astounding. If not for his advanced age, he would have surely become one of the 10 great master teachers instead of Zhong Dingchun in the previous selection. Zhao Bingxiu quickly sent a telepathic message to Zhang Xian, hoping that he would rescind his reckless decision. He truly admired Zhang Xian's capability, and he was unwilling to see anything happen to such a talented genius. It was not without reason that it was called the life-and-death physician duel. Just the slightest carelessness could potentially result in one's death. Knowing that the other party was saying those words out of concern, Zhang Xian replied respectfully, I am grateful for your goodwill, but I know what I am doing. Allow me to resolve this matter myself. So what if Yu Su is a vice school head? So what if he is a talented physician? I will still crush him to a pulp. All right then. However, you must be extremely careful. Vice School Head Yu once went to an ancient domain together with the old principal and a few others, but he ended up being the only one who managed to return alive, whereas the others went missing, and he was extremely self-reproachful about that. Perhaps it was due to the heavy blow of the matter, but his temper has become extremely eccentric since then. I fear that he might attempt to kill you in the duel. If you find yourself in danger, it'd be best for you to admit defeat straight. Don't worry, Mo Zhu and I will step forward to help you mediate the matter, Zhao Bingxiu advised Zhang Xian through Jinqi telepathy. Back then, when the old principal discovered an ancient domain, he had taken a team with him to explore the grounds. However, all of them had gone missing in the expedition, and Yu Su was the only one who had returned alive. After that incident, his temperament abruptly changed. He began isolating himself in his residence, choosing to avoid contact with everyone else as much as he could. Despite being the head of the blacksmith school, Zhao Bingxiu had no confidence that his words would hold any sway over Yu Su. Zhang Xian nodded. After saying what he had to say, Zhao Bingxiu heaved a sigh of relief and leaped down the platform. This was a duel conducted with the approval of the Physician Guild headquarters. Not even he, as a 6-star pinnacle master teacher and one of the 10 great master teachers, could reverse that decision. Soon, School Head Mo, School Head Zhong, and the others arrived as well. What happened for Zhang Shi to become so angry as to recklessly challenge Yu Su to a life-and-death physician duel? Wei Ronchua asked anxiously. I am not too sure about the details either, but my men are currently looking into it. Zhao Bingxiu replied. Looking into it? One of my students happened to be a close friend of Yu Su's direct disciple. He should be reporting back soon, Zhao Bingxiu replied with a nod. The Master Teacher Academy might be big, but as the school heads, they still had some connections throughout the academy. It shouldn't be too difficult for them to look into a matter. Teacher. A short moment later, a middle-aged man suddenly ran up to the group. What have you found out? Zhao Bingxiu asked. According to my friend, it seems that Zhang Shi, together with Wei Changfeng of the Spirit Emporium, paid a visit to Vice School Head Yu, hoping to purchase a 10-leafed flower from him to save a person. However, Vice School Head Yu demanded a cloud mist flower as payment, the middle-aged man said. Cloud mist flower. He was trying to make them scale the cloud mist ridge. Upon hearing those words, a frown appeared on School Head Mo's forehead, and his face darkened. So, this morning, Zhang Shi brought back a cloud mist flower, but Vice School Head Yu adamantly refused to make the trade. Infuriated, Zhang Shi went to take the 6-star physician examination and challenged him to a life-and-death physician duel. The middle-aged man swiftly revealed the news that he had heard. Considering how huge this matter had become, it would be impossible for them to cover up the matter anymore. Thus, Sun Yuan didn't bother hiding anything from the middle-aged man. To refuse to make the trade after they obtained the cloud mist flower, Yu Su is intentionally making things hard for them. Zhao Bingxiu frowned deeply in disapproval. Indeed. There are many Saint Realm beasts in the Cloud Mist Ridge, such that even I wouldn't dare to enter too deep myself. They must have paid a heavy price in order to procure the Cloud Mist flower. And yet, Yu Su still refused to make the trade. It's no wonder Zhang Shi flew into a rage. Even if I was in his place, I doubt that I would have been able to hold back my temper either. School Head Mo exclaimed furiously. Master teachers must honor their words. If we can't even keep a promise we have made, what right do we have to preach to others? Breaking one's promise was one of the greatest taboos that a master teacher could make. But regardless of whether Yu Su has done it intentionally or not, it is still too reckless of Zhang Shi to challenge him to a life-and-death physician duel. Can he win against him? Wei Ronchua frowned in worry. Chapter 807, Yu Su's eyes reddened. This. School Head Mo and School Head Zhao fell silent. They had seen the young man's talent in beast taming and smithing, but in the way of medicine. One must know that treating a patient was an extremely complex study. Due to differences in constitution and cultivation technique, each patient's condition was unique. Even if two people were suffering from the same ailment, the medicine that was effective on one might not necessarily be effective on the other. In order to make the correct judgments for a treatment, knowledge was not enough. One needed vast amounts of experience as well. As such, most physicians chose to roam the world and even frequent battlefields. Only by expanding their horizon and encountering more patients would they make progress in the way of medicine. As such, the older a physician was, the more likely they would be skilled. Even if Zhang Shi possessed superb talent, he was only 20 this year. Could he really be a match for the experienced Yu Su who had lived for nearly 1,000 years? I think so. I asked him, and he seems really confident, Zhao Bingshu replied. Despite his positive words, his tone carried slight traces of hesitation. So far, he had only seen the other party's aptitude in smithing. As for treating a patient, never before. Without anything to work with, it would be hard for him to make an accurate deduction. Please be assured, Zhang Shi will surely emerge victorious. Seeing the conflicted and worried expressions of the trio, the middle-aged man who had just reported the matter to them spoke up. Zhang Shi will surely emerge victorious. The four school heads turned to look at the middle-aged man doubtfully. Zhang Xian was going to face one of the top physicians of Hongyuan Empire. How could that fellow be so confident of the outcome? It seems like you are still unaware, the middle-aged man said. You should have heard of the 3 great trials of the physician school, right? The 3 great trials? Do you mean the malady platform, wall of dilemma, and tower of physicians? School head Mo replied. Those 3 infrastructures formed the basis of the physician school, so even the other school heads had heard of them as well. Zhang Shi. In the first 10 minutes, he tore down the wall of dilemma. In the next 5 minutes, he left the malady platform crumbling. While strolling through the ancestor forest to return to the Tower of Physicians, he induced the shattering of all the tombstones erected there. After which, in less than 10 minutes, he managed to clear the 4-star to 6-star physician examinations, leaving the wills of the predecessors in the Tower of Physicians feeling defeated, thus resulting in the collapse of the Tower of Physicians as well, the middle-aged man said with a bitter smile on his face. The current state that the physician school is in was caused single-handedly by him. How could a person who possesses such astounding medical skills possibly lose? This. School head Zhao and the others widened their eyes in shock. When they arrived at the physician school, they had also been perplexed to see the mess it was in. To think that the culprit behind this would be that fellow as well. Tearing down the wall of dilemma, crumbling the malady platform, destroying the ancestor forest, and demolishing the Tower of Physicians. Just how formidable must one's medical skills be to be able to achieve all of these feats? Unbelievable. Standing beside school head Mo, the head of the physician school, Zhong Dingchun, who had remained silent all this while, staggered weakly upon hearing those words, and muttered in disbelief, all of this happened, just because Yu Su was unwilling to sell a medicinal herb to Zhang Shi. The middle-aged man nodded. From the current news we have, that seems to be the case. Yu Su, screw your grandmother. Zhong Dingchun nearly spurted a mouthful of blood out of sheer frustration. Freaking hell. Do you think that it was easy for the physician school to come this far? Yet, you caused such a mess just by offending a single person. How do you expect me to face the preceding heads of the physician school? With this, I will become the most disgraceful school head in the entire history of the Master Teacher Academy. During my administration, a student actually managed to cause such devastating damage to the physician school, and through legitimate means at that. The heck, just what have I done so wrong to deserve this? I was doing nothing in my residence when this came out of nowhere. Yu Su, are you sure you aren't a spy sent by others to do me in? Zhong Dingchun gnashed his teeth furiously. After this, I will make sure to strip him of his position as the vice head and make him grind himself to dust reconstructing the Tower of Physicians. No, that won't quell my anger. I will make him clean every single toilet in the physician school. The other vice school heads helped their own school by bringing in top-notch talents and maintaining order, but this fellow, not only did he break his promise, he even set such a talent thoroughly against the physician school. What will others think of the physician school when they learn of it? Just why in the world did I appoint this darn thing as the vice head of the physician school? My condolences. Seeing the frenzied state that school head Zhong was in, school head Mo and the others shook their heads and sighed deeply. Of all people Yu Su could have offended, he just had to pick on the most monstrous student the Master Teacher Academy had ever had since its inception. It was fortunate that the other party had only torn down the Tower of Physicians before challenging Yu Su to a life-and-death physician duel. If he had headed to the other facilities as well, this day might just have been the final day of the physician school. At this point, Wei Ranxue couldn't help but heave a long sigh of relief. Thank God that the examination for our terpsichore school is much easier. Otherwise, who knows what could have happened to our terpsichore school. While attempting to take the blacksmith examination, Zhang Xian had destroyed half of the blacksmith guild along with the entire passageway of corridors. It was even worse for his physician examination. The physician school lost its wall of dilemma, malady platform, ancestor forest, and tower of physicians, and it seemed that a vice school head was still waiting to get onto that list. It was truly fortunate that she had made the wise call to apply for the 6-star terpsichore emblem for Zhang Xian directly. Otherwise, her small terpsichore school couldn't possibly have survived the Zhang Xian ordeal. Hearing those words, school head Mo's eyebrows immediately began twitching. Then, should I apply for a 6-star beast tamer emblem for him, too? What if he suddenly thinks of taking the examination in a few days' time? The middle-aged man. The other 3 school heads. Meanwhile, amidst a huge gust of wind, vice school head Yu Su landed on the platform. Placing his hands behind his back, he gazed at Zhang Xian menacingly with narrowed eyes. Carrying a domineering aura as if the entire world was in his grasp, he sneered coldly, "With your measly capabilities, you dare challenge me? I won't bully you. I will let you choose what kind of duel we shall have." A duel between physicians could be mainly classified into 2 categories, quantity and quality. In a duel of quantity, the physicians would be gauged based on the number of patients they could treat to a satisfactory degree within a set period of time, conventionally 2 hours. On the other hand, in a duel of quality, the physicians would be tasked to come up with a prescription for the same patient, and they would be judged on how easy it was to concoct the prescription, its price, and the effectiveness of it. As expected of vice school head Yu, he sure is magnanimous. Of course. As a 6-star pinnacle physician, it's a piece of cake for him to deal with a freshman. You're my idol, vice school head Yu. Under normal circumstances, the challenged person in a life-and-death physician duel would have the right to select the format of the duel, and yet, vice school head Yu decisively gave away this advantage to Zhang Xian. His magnanimous actions immediately won him the applause and admiration of many amidst the crowd. Did you see that? That is the magnanimity that a master teacher should have. For a freshman who has barely learned peanuts about the way of medicine to be so arrogant as to challenge a veteran such as vice school head Yu. Even if he's given you the advantage of choosing, can you win? There is no doubt, that fellow Zhang Xian will surely lose. Just because he has achieved that little bit here and there, he forgot his own place. Today, vice school head Yu will beat him back to where he belongs. I heard that he established a new student faction called the Xianxian faction or something a few days ago. Those freshmen sure are brazen to attempt to overthrow the long-established hierarchy right after their enrollment. As their ringleader, he must be punished sternly as a warning to others. Upon hearing that Zhang Xian was so brazen as to challenge a vice head of the physician school, many of the seniors couldn't help but gloat gleefully. This is the Master Teacher Academy, not whatever rundown village you come from. Instead of lying low obediently, you chose to go around causing trouble. Now, You shall suffer the consequences of your actions. Hearing the discussions below, Yu Su felt surge of confidence, and he mocked Zhang Xian coldly. Why? You are the one who challenged me. Are you scared speechless now that I am standing before you? Seeing Yu Su's majestic disposition, another round of cheers broke out beneath the stage. In stark contrast to the delighted cheers of the crowd was Sun Yuan, who was on the verge of bursting into tears after rushing over to the platform as fast as he could and seeing what he saw. His teacher was currently overloaded with confidence, but if his teacher had seen what he had seen just a moment ago, he wouldn't be acting in such a manner. Not daring to waste a single moment, Sun Yuan hurriedly sent a telepathic message over. Teacher, I have a matter that I must inform you of right now. Right now? Can't you see that I'm busy? Yu Su's eyebrows shot up in displeasure. His student, Sun Yuan, might be a talented physician, but wasn't he way too lacking in his sense of timing? Couldn't Sun Yuan see that he was busy over here? This matter is really urgent, so I can't put it off. Otherwise, I fear that teacher might be disadvantaged in the duel. Despite seeing his teacher's livid expression, Sun Yuan knew how important this matter was, so he pushed on. Disadvantaged? Yu Su frowned. Yes. Zhang Shi, just a few moments ago, managed to clear the 6-star physician examination. Fearing that his teacher would lose his patience, he hurriedly got straight to the point. He cleared the 6-star physician examination despite his lacking cultivation as a freshman. It seems like he does possess some true capability. Yu Su was stunned for an instant before nodding slightly. It was no wonder the other party had won the favor of school head Zhao and the others. He was indeed a talented individual. But, so what? The other party was a freshman who had only recently cleared the 6-star physician examination. On the other hand, he was a veteran who had immersed himself in the way of medicine of nearly 1,000 years. Did he need to fear an inexperienced brat? Not only so, he went to the wall of dilemma, and single-handedly, he solved all of the problems on it. Sun Yuan continued. Wall of dilemma. Is that even within the means of a new 6-star physician? Let me guess, he went back without even solving a single problem, right? Yu Su was in the middle of his sentence when the meaning of Sun Yuan's words suddenly struck him, and he froze. What did you just say? He solved all of the problems on it. Yes, and that's not all. Sun Yuan swiftly went through what he had encountered previously. The malady platform collapsed. The tombstones in the ancestor forest shattered out of sheer embarrassment. While clearing the 6-star physician examination, he left the lingering will of the predecessors ashamed of their ignorance, thus inducing the collapse of the Tower of Physicians. So, he is the culprit of the mess I see before me. Every single matter that Sun Yuan spoke about was like a bolt of lightning striking Yu Su. In that instant, he felt as if someone had thrown him down an abyss that was thousands and thousands of zhang deep, and it was just a matter of time before he went splat. Putting everything aside, he couldn't even solve a single question on the wall of dilemma. Yet, the other party actually solved more than 500 of them in a single breath. Was that even humanly possible? I am facing such a monster in a life-and-death physician duel. You must be pulling my leg, right? Yu Su had thought that the other party was just a mere chick which he could squash with one hand tied behind his back. Yet, he realized that his judgment had failed him, and the other party was actually a majestic dragon of the heavens, an existence who could destroy his world with a breath. That's right. I fear that the odds are against teacher in this duel. Sun Yuan said worriedly. Yu Su's body swayed weakly, and it looked as if he would collapse at any moment. How in the world is this, the odds are against me? More like I don't even have a single odd in my favor at all. If he were to really compete with the other party, it would definitely be his head that rolled. If only he'd known that this would happen, he would have never agreed to it. Why didn't you say so earlier? Yu Su couldn't help but berate in fury. If only Sun Yuan had told him this earlier. What was the point of telling him this now that he had agreed to the duel? His acceptance had already reached the Physician Guild headquarters, it was too late to back out now. Didn't teacher tell me to warm up some fine wine to wait for your return? Sun Yuan replied indignantly. It wasn't that I didn't want to speak, but you didn't give you a chance to do so. Yu Su's mouth twitched. Warm up some fine wine. As the memories regarding everything that had happened earlier flashed through his mind, Yu Su couldn't help but feel extremely stifled inside. I only refused to sell you a 10-leafed flower, did you need to leave the Physician Guild in such a state? To challenge me on a life-and-death physician duel on top of everything else. Even if I win this duel by some chance, I will still be skinned alive by the school head. Just what the heck is this? Looks like I have reaped what I have sowed. As bitter as the fruit may be, I have no choice but to swallow it. In that instant, Yu Su felt his eyes reddening. Chapter 808, Content of the Duel. But as stifled as he was, as an old monster who had lived for nearly 1,000 years, he swiftly recovered and began thinking of a solution to his current plight. Since he was able to clear the wall of dilemma, it is unlikely that he would stumble on difficult illnesses. Since he was able to overcome the malady platform, it means that he has a deep understanding of the newest illnesses. Since he was able to make the predecessors' wills voluntarily destroy their own tombstones out of shame, it means that his understanding of the way of medicine has reached an incredible level. The more Yu Su pondered the matter, the more awful his complexion became. No matter how he looked at the matter, he couldn't see himself winning at all. Unless... Suddenly, a thought struck Yu Shi's mind, and a vicious glint flashed in the depths of his eyes. All right, it's decided then. Just as he made his decision, Zhang Xian suddenly raised his gaze and said, since Vice School Head Yu is so generous as to offer me the opportunity to decide on the format of the duel, I will graciously take you up on the offer. The duel format I propose is... Hold it right there, a voice abruptly interjected. Without regard for all of the words he had said before, Yu Su raised his hand and said, since you are the one who challenged me, naturally, I should be the one deciding the format of the duel. I would have to be a fool to allow you to decide the duel format. Is this the magnanimity that you all spoke about? Zhang Xian muttered with a wry smile. Upon hearing those words, the students who had still been cheering in support for Yu Su a moment ago abruptly fell silent. They felt a stinging pain on their cheeks, as if they had been sharply slapped on their faces. Just a moment after they praised the other party for his magnanimity, the other party reneged on his words. As a 6-star master teacher, can't you at least have a sense of shame and honor your words? Fine, speak then. Zhang Xian replied coldly. It mattered not to him what the other party chose. There was only one thing he was here for, and that was to avenge Wei Changfeng. He would achieve this regardless of whatever stood in his path. Good. As physicians, in order to save the lives of our patients, we have to be skilled in all aspects. Vice School Head Yu gazed at Zhang Xian with a sharp glint in his eyes as he continued, naturally, this includes curing poison as well. This is an essential skill that all physicians must learn. The duel format I propose is very simple. Do you dare to participate in a duel of poison curing with me? Duel of poison curing? Zhang Xian raised his eyebrows. Even though it wasn't as varied as the master teachers, a duel between physicians could come in many forms as well, and poison curing happened to be one of them. Poison masters and physicians were nemesis of one another. If one wanted to progress further as a physician and earn the respect of others, one had to be skilled in the art of poison curing. Otherwise, it would truly be shameful if a high-ranking member of the Physician Guild were to succumb to a secret attack by the poison masters. Throughout history, there were simply far too many cases of physicians being poisoned to death. That's right. Not only must a physician be good at treating illnesses, he must also be capable of curing poison as well. Without comprehensive knowledge in all aspects of medicine, one cannot be considered a full-fledged physician. So, do you dare to take me on in a duel of poison curing? Yusu asked with a smirk on his face. Preposterous. That damned fellow. School head Zhong Dingchun was already incensed when he saw Yusu suddenly reneging on his words. However, upon seeing the latter proposing a duel of poison curing, he couldn't hold himself back any longer and cursed furiously. What's wrong? School head Mo asked. Poison curing is an extremely dangerous duel format. The lives of those involved will be put at risk. Zhong Dingchun said. Put at risk? What do you mean by that? School head Chao and the others were perplexed. They had heard of the duel of poison curing before, but as it was a less common form of dueling among physicians, they weren't too sure about the rules. In order to test a cure for a poison, we will need someone who is afflicted with the poison. In other words, a person must be afflicted with the poison to carry out this duel. Zhong Dingchun said. A person must be afflicted with the poison? Since it was a duel, it was natural that an extremely potent poison would be used. It would still be fine if the physicians managed to cure the poison, but what if they were to fail? Wouldn't the person afflicted end up being poisoned to death? Indeed. This duel is simply far too dangerous, so most physicians tend to avoid it. Yet, of all things, that fellow chose this one. Zhong Dingchun gritted his teeth. Curing poison was no joking matter. Just wrong move could cause the poison to mutate, rendering the existing antidotes useless. A life could easily be lost due to it. Wait. I understand that someone has to be afflicted with the poison in order to assess the physician's poison curing skills accurately, but surely there's no need to use a human as a test subject here. It should be possible to use pill sample beasts instead. After all, physicians carry the noble mission of treating the ill and supporting the wounded. How could they take a life so lightly? There were spirit beasts with similar constitutions to a human, so there should be no need to use a human for the duel. It's not like that. Zhong Dingchun was just about to explain when Zhang Xian's voice suddenly echoed through the surroundings. Sure, a duel of poison curing it shall be then. What are the rules? It's simple. Upon seeing Zhang Xian agree to the duel, Yusu heaved a sigh of relief. With a smirk, he said, we will each take out a poison for the other to consume, and whoever succeeds in curing the poison within a given period of time will be deemed to be victorious. We will be testing the poison with our bodies? Zhang Xian frowned. That's right. I have already told you the rules, so what do you say about it? Do you dare take up the challenge? If you don't, it will be considered your loss for this duel. Yusu harumphed coldly. They will each consume the poison of the other. If they fail to cure it, won't they die on the spot? Indeed. Aren't the rules of this duel a little way too frightening? Even though it's called the life and death physician duel, it's just a metaphor. To think that they would really end up pitting their lives against one another in this duel. Upon hearing the rules, a huge commotion broke out amidst the crowd. Even Wei Ranxue, school head Zhao, and the others were stunned. It was no wonder Zhong Dingchun was so furious upon hearing the name of the duel. Who would have thought that it was so vicious? It would still be fine if they could cure it, but if they couldn't? One must know that there were many kinds of mystical poisons in the world, and there were even some that could cause instantaneous death. Just as everyone thought that Zhang Xian would never agree to a duel with such ridiculous rules, the latter suddenly announced, "Fine, I agree to it." School head Mo's face paled, and he hurriedly exclaimed, "You can't agree to it. That's too dangerous." He had heard about Yang Shi's existence from Mo Gaoyuan. If Zhang Shi were to be poisoned to death, there was no one in the Master Teacher Academy who could withstand Yang Shi's wrath. The Master Teacher Academy could very well become a relic of the past due to this. Damn it, how can he be so shameless? He's a Saint Realm expert, a different level of existence from Zhang Shi. Even if Zhang Shi has some formidable poison on him, it's unlikely to work against him. Wei Ronxue's face also reddened in fury. Naturally, the prowess of a poison was also correlated with a cultivator's cultivation realm. This was just like how a drop of water could drown an ant but was completely ineffective against an elephant. As a higher level of existence, Saint Realm experts could survive lethal doses of poison that would cause a Chrysalis Realm expert to die many times over. Considering the fundamental difference between their strength, Zhang Xian was already at an overwhelming disadvantage before the duel had even started. In the first place, it couldn't be said that the rules of the duel were fair to both sides. Infuriated, Zhao Bingxiu turned to school head Zhong with a livid expression on his face. Zhong Dingchun, is this the character of a vice head of your physician school? Yu Su reneging on his promise was a dishonorable and shameful action for a master teacher to make, but ultimately, the medicinal herb was still his. It was his freedom of choice to choose whether he wanted to sell it or not, and there was no way anyone could force him into it. But at this very moment, Yu Su was exploiting his inherent advantages as a Saint Realm expert to challenge the other party to a duel of poison curing, which would put their lives at stake. This was a clear attempt to corner the other party and kill him. This reflected a fatal flaw in Yu Su's character. School head Zhao didn't have much contact with Yu Su, so he didn't know him well as a person. However, to go to the extent of having a student of the academy killed despite being a vice school head, was that person really a master teacher? While there were master teachers who were selfish and lacked compassion, even they wouldn't do something as disgraceful and vicious as this. Zhong Dingchuan's face turned crimson in embarrassment upon hearing those words. While Yu Su didn't infringe on the rules of the life and death physician duel, his actions lacked the righteousness and magnanimity a master teacher should have. There was nothing to say about his actions but shameful, utterly shameful. You need not blame school head Zhong. I have had some interactions with Yu Su before, and he wasn't like that before. Perhaps it is due to his age encroaching on him and his fear of death growing, he becomes more willing to abandon his dignity and honor for his life. School head Mo sighed. It is often only when death approaches that one's desire to live kicks in. This desire to live gnaws at one, prompting one to do anything as long as one can push death further away from them. School head Mo continued, the fear of death is never an easy hurdle to overcome. There are some who are able to uphold their morals and values even in the face of death, preserving their honor and dignity. But ultimately, most men are only mortals. They succumb to fear, clinging desperately to every additional day they can get. After all, honor and dignity mean nothing to a dead man. But as a master teacher and a vice school head of the physician school, he isn't just anyone. In order to extend his longevity, he goes around hunting down spirit beasts to procure their blood. It is only because we are colleagues and the misfortune he encountered in that expedition with the old principal that I had turned a blind eye to his actions. And yet, he still doesn't know repentance. Hunting down spirit beast. This was the first Zhong Dingchun was hearing of this, so he couldn't help but turn to school head Mo with a questioning gaze. Those who trod on the way of medicine should possess a deference for life in their soul. While it was impossible to expect them to save everyone that they met, they should never allow a life to slip away easily, and this included the lives of spirit beasts as well. Yet, to go around hunting spirit beasts just to sustain his life. Was this truly the doing of a physician? Indeed. I learned of this coincidentally a few days ago while looking into the whereabouts of Senior Byzantium Helios. It's said that within the past year, just counting the number of half-saint realm beasts, Yu Su has already killed more than 20 of them. School head Mo harumphed. More than 20. What is he killing so many half-saint beasts for? School head Zhong was astonished. Yu Su had done all of this discreetly behind his back, so despite being the head of the physician school, Zhong Dingchun was completely unaware of this. School head Mo shook his head. Regarding that, I am not too sure either. He had also been bewildered when he first heard the news, but considering that Yusu hadn't done anything that would infringe on the interests of the Master Teacher Academy, he didn't have a good reason to investigate the matter either. Even on the Hongyuan mountain range, half-saint beasts can be considered a great power. Yusu might be a Saint One Dan expert, but it wouldn't be easy for him to hunt them either. To kill over 20 of them in a single year. Zhong Dingchun could hardly believe his ears. Half-Saint Realm beasts were able to stand their ground even against Saint Realm cultivators. Even if they were no match for Yusu, they could have still fled easily. How could so many of them be hunted in a single year? Besides, it was not like there were half-saint beasts lying all over the Hongyuan mountain range. It might not be too difficult to find a single one, but finding 20 of them. Difficult. I am not too sure about it, but it seems like Yusu has some ties with the Cloud Mist Ridge too. Regardless, I have verified the news regarding the 20 half-saint beasts, so there is no mistake about it. If you still harbor some doubts, you can question Yusu after the duel. School head Mo said. With many doubts still lingering in his head, Zhong Dingchun nodded slowly. Most of the saint beasts in the Hongyuan mountain range resided in the Cloud Mist Ridge. If the Cloud Mist Ridge was involved in this matter as well, then there was a good chance that it was true. Put that aside for now. As the head of the physician school, can't you stop the duel? Seeing that the duo was still in the mood to discuss other matters, Wei Ranxue snapped at them. The urgent matter at hand was to deal with the duel between Yusu and Zhang Xian. Otherwise, a life might be lost just like that. The life and death physician duel is conducted with the approval of the Physician Guild. Once it has started, it can no longer be stopped. If we were to interfere in it, we would just end up complicating things. Zhong Dingchun shook his head. It was not that he was unwilling to interfere in the matter but that he couldn't. The life and death physician duel was conducted with the approval of the Physician Guild headquarters, and attempting to interfere in it would mean challenging the authority of the entire Physician Guild. Even as one of the 10 great master teachers, he didn't have the power to go against the Physician Guild. This was the rules, and it mustn't be broken. Otherwise, he wouldn't have allowed Yusu to still stand proudly on the stage. He would have already rushed forward to give him a good pummeling. Chapter 809, Cheers. Feel free. Hearing Zhong Dingchun's words, Wei Ranxue questioned heatedly, what can we do then? Are we to watch as they kill one another? She was still intending to study Terpsichorean arts from Zhang Xian. If something were to happen to him, who would she learn from? Calm down. It's impossible to interfere in the life and death physician duel, but if we see either of them in mortal danger, we can advise that they give up. As long as they admit defeat, I believe that given our standing, they shouldn't go so far as to kill the other party despite our mediation. Zhao Bingxiu said. After a moment of hesitation, Wei Ranxue was unable to come up with a better solution either, so she could only nod in agreement. I guess this is all we can do for now. While the few of them were communicating telepathically amongst themselves using their saint intent, a huge commotion had broken out amidst the crowd as well. Those who were standing around the platform were nearly all physicians, and upon hearing that it would be a duel of poison curing, they glanced at one another with astounded expressions on their faces. This was no longer a means to resolve their conflict, it was a battle to the death. In this duel, it was highly likely that one of them would lose their life. For a student to actually go so far against a vice school head. Just what was he up to? Teacher. Luo Qiqi, who had arrived just a moment ago, heard the news, and her face immediately paled in fright. A duel of poison curing? Standing beside her, Hu Yaoyao's eyebrows also shot up. It was difficult to tell what she was thinking, but her fists were tightly clenched by her sides. Take out your poison, we will swap with one another. The time limit is an hour, and whoever succeeds in curing the poison first wins. If either of us dies, he can only blame himself for being indolent in his studies. Yusu roared with laughter. Based on the other party's accomplishments, it was unlikely that he would be a match for him in a battle in the way of medicine. However, in the field of poison curing, there was not a person in the Master Teacher Academy who was a match for him. Fine by me. Zhang Xian replied with a cold smile. Let's begin then. Yu Su flicked his wrist and took out a murky green jade bottle. This is my poison. With a flick of his finger, the bottle flew in Zhang Xian's direction. Zhang Xian raised his hands and caught it casually. Even without opening the bottle, he could feel an astounding power rippling within it, threatening to burst forth at any moment. Intrigued, Zhang Xian activated his eye of insight and assessed it. In an instant, he saw a black aura shrouding the bottle. Even if a Saint Realm 1 Dan expert were to consume it, their physiological structure would likely be destroyed in an instant, resulting in immediate death. Uncorking the lid slightly, a pungent smell immediately surged from the bottle. Even the smell itself carried a poison that could result in the immediate death of an ordinary human. What kind of poison is that? Beneath the stage, Zhong Dingchuan's face warped in astonishment. As the head of the physician school, a 6-star pinnacle physician, he could sense the fearsome aura within the jade bottle. Even if it was him who came into contact with it, the chances were that he wouldn't walk out from the encounter alive. This poison is extremely formidable. School head Mo asked worriedly. Formidable? Putting aside an hour, I don't think that I would be able to find a cure to it even if you were to give me a day. Zhong Dingchun shook his head grimly. Even you are unable to find a cure to it? Then. School head Mo widened his eyes in shock. After a moment of hesitation, Zhong Dingchun replied, we can only have faith in Zhang Shi's capability. His proficiency in the way of medicine is far above mine, so it might be that he is able to achieve what I can't. After learning of Zhang Xian's astounding deeds, Zhong Dingchun knew that the other party's medical skills were way above his, so it would be hard for him to make a judgment at the moment. Since that was the case, he decided to wait and see first. It seems you are prepared. Corking the bottle, Zhang Xian turned his gaze back to Yu Su. It was no wonder the other party proposed a duel of poison curing. The poison he had at hand was indeed fearsome. This is a poison that I obtained coincidentally, and it is effective even against Saint Realm experts. Where is your poison? Yu Su sneered coldly in response. My poison? Zhang Xian frowned. Even though he was a poison master, he had never concocted a poison before, needless to say, one that would be capable of killing a Saint Realm expert. There wasn't any poison he could take out from his storage ring at that very instant. What? You don't have any? Going by the rules, that would mean a loss on your part. Yu Su said coldly. The rules of the duel had been stated clearly, both parties had to offer a poison of their own to the other party. If Zhang Xian was unable to take anything out, it would mean an automatic victory for Yu Su. It was not without reason that Yu Su had chosen this format of duel. He didn't think that there was anyone in Hongyuan Empire who was capable of taking out a poison more potent than the one in his jade bottle. Of course I do, hold on for a moment. Waving his hands casually, Zhang Xian fell into a short moment of contemplation before turning his sights to School Head Mo. School Head Mo, by any chance, do you have some spirit solution of vigor? Spirit solution of vigor? School Head Mo was stunned for a moment before a peculiar expression slowly crept across his face. Do you mean the urine of Saint Beasts? Indeed. If you do have some, can you give some to me? Zhang Xian asked. The spirit solution of vigor was the academic terminology for the urine of Saint Beasts, and it was commonly used amongst physicians so as to make it sound less dirty. While the spirit solution of vigor was only normal excretion for Saint Beasts, it was an object of fear for low-tier spirit beasts. Beasts usually used their urine to demarcate their sphere of influence, and Saint Beasts were no exception to the rule. As such, most beast tamers tended to carry some with them so as to deter the assault of spirit beasts. You want some? School head Mo frowned in confusion. He glanced at Zhong Dingchun, hoping that he might have some clue what Zhang Xian was up to, but the latter looked equally perplexed as well. The other party has taken out such a formidable poison, and instead of finding a poison to go against him, you are asking for the urine of saint beasts instead? Even though the spirit solution of vigor is effective at keeping spirit beasts at bay, surely you aren't thinking that it'll work on saint realm cultivators too? Of course. But despite school head Mo's bewilderment, he felt that Zhang Shi wouldn't be asking him for it without any reason. Thus, flicking his wrist, he took out a Qi One long gourd and threw it to the platform. Catching the gourd, Zhang Xian swirled it slightly, and an astringent odor immediately diffused from it. Satisfied, Zhang Xian nodded and turned to Yusu. All right, this is my poison. In that instant, Yusu's face turned as dark as the bottom of a pot, and he nearly choked to death. The heck? I took out a lethal poison, and yet you presented me with a gourd of beast urine. What do you mean by that? To call it your poison on top of that. Do I look blind to you? Everyone here saw with their own eyes that school head Mo just passed it to you, and you haven't even uncapped it yet. The hell is this a poison? You are just intentionally trying to humiliate me, aren't you? Zhang Xian, screw your grandmother. Even if you want to humiliate me, you shouldn't have done this. This is cheating. Not only was Yusu frenzied, the crowd who was watching the show from below also abruptly fell deathly silent upon seeing that scene. Their eyes bulged from their sockets, as if they had seen a ghost. This is a duel of poison curing, a duel that can very well determine one's life and death. The poison that vice school head you took out carries a frightening aura, and just the smell makes one feel as if death is encroaching upon oneself. It is one thing for you not to take out a poison to match him, but, a gourd of urine? More importantly, if you had taken it out discreetly, we wouldn't have thought much of it. But you asked school head Mo for it in public and passed it to vice school head Yusu right after you received it. Could you have been any less discreet than that? On the other hand, Zhong Dingchun also widened his eyes, and he nearly spurted a mouthful of blood. As a 6-star pinnacle physician, he naturally knew that the urine of saint beasts carried no poison whatsoever. School head Zhong turned to school head Mo and asked, School head Mo, could it be that there is something special about your spirit solution of vigor? There isn't. I just procured it from my saint beast not too long ago. School head Mo was also a little dazed by the abrupt twist of events before him. He couldn't comprehend what the young man on the stage was up to. What's wrong? I have already prepared my poison. If you dare not drink it, it'll be your loss. Zhang Xian said as he continued holding the gourd up to Yusu, who was still reluctant to take it. Yusu's breathing hastened, and in that instant, he was truly tempted to rush forward and crush the neck of the young man standing before him. He had thought that this would be an easy duel for him. No matter how potent the other party's poison was, there was no way the other party would win. Yet, who could have known that the fellow wouldn't play by the rules, presenting him with a gourd of urine instead? If he were to drink it, even if he won this duel, he would never be able to hold his head high before anyone anymore. Drinking urine to achieve a victory. Screw that. But if he didn't drink it, that would mean that he was backing out from the duel, and going by the rules of the life and death physician duel, Zhang Xian would be able to do anything to him. He was a 6-star pinnacle master teacher, the vice head of the physician school. How did he end up getting cornered like that? Seeing the other party's agitated breathing and hateful gaze, Zhang Xian sneered coldly. Stop wasting time. If you aren't going to drink it, just surrender. You are the one who decided on the content of the duel, not me. In truth, he hadn't intended to humiliate Yusu either. He had no poison on him, and so far, the only books he had read on poison were those from the Red Lotus Ridge Poison Hall. As such, his current proficiency as a poison master was still only at 2-star. With his current capability, it was impossible for him to concoct a poison capable of killing a Saint Realm expert. Besides, even if he could, he didn't have the ingredients on him to do so at this very instant. Without any poison formula or medicinal ingredients for him to work with, how in the world was he going to concoct a poison? Left with no choice, Zhang Xian could only bank on his Heaven's Path Jinqi. After learning the Heaven's Path poison art, he was able to turn his Jinqi into either a medicine or a lethal poison at a whim. If he wanted to win against Yu Su in the duel of poison curing, he would have to use this. However, it would be difficult to hide the Heaven's Path Jinqi from Yu Su, a Saint Realm expert, and considering the unbelievable purity of it, the revelation of its existence could potentially bring Zhang Xian great trouble. Thus, he had to use something with an overpowering odor to conceal it. While strong alcohol did work against Luo Qiqi and the others, it was doubtful whether it would be effective on a Saint Realm expert or not. On the other hand, the spirit solution of vigor carried an astringent odor. On top of that, drinking such a thing in public, the other party would surely try to gulp it down as fast as he could so as to get it over with as soon as possible. With that, the Heaven's Path Jinqi would be able to swiftly fuse together with the other party's own Jinqi before he could detect anything. Once this was done, putting aside a 6-star physician, even if a 9-star physician was there that day, they would be helpless before this situation. The Heaven's Path Jinqi was not a lethal poison but incredibly pure Jinqi. As such, unlike typical poison, the body wouldn't inhibit its movements at all, allowing it to easily seep into the vitals of a cultivator. Even if the cultivator were to notice its existence, it would be impossible for them to expel it from their body. In the truest sense, it could be considered an incurable disease. This is a duel of poison curing, and yet, you offered me a gourd of Saint Beast urine instead. This is an infringement of the rules. Yu Su gnashed his teeth together in savagery. As a physician, you should know that Saint Beast urine is a type of medicinal ingredient as well, otherwise it wouldn't be known as the spirit solution of vigor among physicians either. It is used to treat berserk syndrome, icefire Jinqi clots, beast scabs, and several hundred different types of illnesses. Since it's a medicinal ingredient, naturally it can be used as a poison as well. Your poison is concocted out of many medicinal ingredients, so why can't mine be the same? Since I am willing to consume yours, you shouldn't have any problem with mine as well. If you refuse to drink it, I will have to ask you to just admit defeat. Zhang Xian waved his hands casually. Despite the astringent odor of the spirit solution of vigor which left one on the verge of fainting with just a sniff, it did possess medicinal properties as well. And anything that possessed medicinal properties could be utilized as poison. This was common knowledge among physicians. Since the spirit solution of vigor could be classified as a poison as well, this wasn't an infringement of the rules. Seeing that there was no way around it, Yu Su gritted his teeth furiously and spat, "You want me to admit defeat? Dream on. Fine, I will drink it. However, we shall start at the same time." Start at the same time? There is no need for that. Without any hesitation, Zhang Xian poured the poison in the jade bottle into his mouth before turning his gaze back to Yu Su with an inviting gesture. Cheers, feel free. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.